There she is.
Yay.
Marlene, you're on mute.
Unmute. Okay. Wayne is trying to get on and he just called me. So
Wayne,
yeah. And so I told him to call Jennifer. He's dialing all these numbers, which are a little different than this page here from the front because he's a panelist, I guess. But he's having trouble. So I just had him call Jennifer. Hopefully she'll be able to get him on. All right. We're getting there.
It's okay.
Sorry.
We were going to start without you.
Yeah, I bet you were, and you could run it.
I don't know about that. I wasn't prepared for that one.
Yeah. Is everybody unmuted? Who are panelists?
Yep.
Looks that way.
Yes.
Looks like it.
yes.
Okay. Do we know who Rob is? As far as it seemed to me, he was dialing in or going to be watching us anyway. Rob Munger.
I don't see him.
Yeah, I don't know which one he would be as far as attendees go.
Well, there's only Bob. That's not Rob.
Well, maybe not, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone in particular want to say the invocation tonight? Okay, thank you. Hopefully I'll be able to see all of this as the meeting goes on. Okay, Steve is talking, but I can't hear him.
I'm here.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess we might as well get going. It's 7 o'clock. He's talking, but I can't hear him.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'd like to call this May 26th meeting. All right. Okay. Of the Northfield Township Board to order. Let's have the invocation and the pledge. Go ahead, Ms. Bellinger.
With Memorial Day being just yesterday, it even has more of a special meaning. The fact that we can actually humbly petition our Heavenly Father with the deepest of gratitude and asking for his guidance and love and wisdom for not only this meeting tonight, but for our daily lives. We need to thank all those who have given their life for this country. And I have a special gratitude for each and every day. Amen.
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 I have
Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
to the flag
Of
of
the
the
United States of America,
America and to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Sounds a lot different when we're not in the
Shush.
Sure does. So roll call, please, Miss Manley.
Otto.
Here.
Chick.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here,
Zelenak.
present.
Manley here. Shockley.
Here.
And Docket absent with notice.
He's trying to get
Not
on
gonna be here. Right.
my phone. Okay, so we have 6 here and hopefully Mr. Docket soon. Okay, now's an opportunity for call to the public. So if anyone would like to speak this evening to us, I know that Mr. Gordon has his hand up. So I will unmute you and you can feel free to speak, state your name, your address, and then please share your thoughts with us. Keep it to 3 minutes, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
He's muted.
He's muted now. He's unmuted.
Oh,
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
great. David Gordon, Helmer Road. I can see you. I don't know if you can see me or not.
No.
When somebody shows up at a meeting, they usually come to the mic and they're viewed by the public. I think that would be helpful in the Zoom meetings that you're holding. There's 3 things on the item I'd like to talk about on the agenda. 75 Barker Road. It appears as if you're still considering selling that for less than what the appraised value is, even though a month or 2 ago you had a marijuana entrepreneur in there offering $500,000 more than what you're being offered today. I don't find that to be particularly fiscally responsible. In terms of the bond that you want to float for $5 million for the retention tank, the tank is old technology that Tetra Tech has been trying to sell it to the community for 32 years. A number of boards have passed on the idea. And the problem, I think, is that number one, from everything I hear on the news, we're entering into a financial world that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. It doesn't seem like today is the right time to be borrowing millions of dollars. I don't know any financial advisor who's saying, yeah, this is a great time to keep on some debt. So I would like you to consider other ways of dealing with the storm infiltration that you have, because the tank doesn't do anything to solve that. We'll be spending $5 million for something that doesn't even solve the root problem. There are new ways of handling runoff that have been devised in the last 30 plus years. I would hope that you'd look at those. I just Googled them quickly and found lots of options in just a few minutes. The last thing I wanted to mention is I see that the budget is on here. Now, budgets aren't very sexy, but they are very illuminating in terms of priorities. And the last meeting, I guess you revealed that the state was going to cut revenue sharing by 50%. That's what you're being told, a loss of possibly $350,000. This is not new to you. You've known about it for, I believe, a couple of months at this point. And when I look at the report that you have in front of you from the manager, there's a long list of possible cuts. But what I find alarming is that there isn't even a dollar figure next to the various items to be cut. I don't know how you're supposed to make decisions when you don't know what you're going to be saving by cutting anything. I believe that report is woefully inadequate for the decisions that you're facing today. And that's all I have. I wish you the best of luck, and I would encourage you to show some fiscal restraint and ask the questions that need to be asked before making decisions, especially ones that will burden the community for 20 years with millions of dollars in debt. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And now we have, let's see. Jessica? You'd like to speak to us this evening?
Yes, hi, this is Jessica Meissner at 8176 Fair Oak Drive. I just have one question, and that is, I want to know what plan you have for the bonds, for the debt that you're going to take on for the retention tank, if in fact it turns out to be true, as the Fair Oak Drive neighbors believe it to be true, that you cannot build it on the site you plan to build it. What then will happen with that debt that you take on? Do you have a plan for that? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Okay. Marissa Priskin.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, it's Marissa Priskin, 32 Shum Drive. I've been watching some of your meetings. I haven't spoken. I wanted to thank you all for your service, because I know that this is a challenging time and it's difficult enough to get stuff done when you have open access to the resources that you need. So I appreciate all the hard work you're all doing right now. I mean, even running a household isn't easy in this situation we've got going on. So thank you for that. About the budget, I know you'll have some hard decisions to make, and obviously things are a lot different now than they were a few months ago when you're making considerations. But we did submit for the Land Preservation Committee a budget, and we had a nice long talk at our meeting about how we needed to scale that back considering the pandemic, and we did do that. And I know that it's going to be a difficult decision to award money to what might seem like extra programs or frivolous ones, but I do think of land preservation as an investment in this township and the future. And I do think that it has been shown historically that this township is in favor of preserving some natural space. So I would just like, when you're considering the budget cuts tonight, consider the land preservation's proposal and where you want to prioritize your funds moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we've got Mr. Dockett on.
I'm here.
Hello.
I'm on.
Glad you made it. We're still in the call to the public now. If we have any more, I see no more hands up. Okay. Ms. Carlisle, can you make Mr. Dockett a panelist, or does he have to stay on as an attendee?
He can stay on as an attendee. I just won't remove or disable his talking, and then he'll stay on the panelist screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I see no other people who would like to speak to us at the call to the public. Do we have any board members who would like to respond at this time to call to the public? Ms. Zelnok.
So I do have we figured out the deed restrictions on the sewer basin? Because I think that's an important aspect before we go forward, is to see if it does exist, what will we do, as Ms. Meisner asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an important aspect. I think as far as 75 Barker, I think that's a tough decision. And yes, we did have offers from people that wanted marijuana there. However, it was contingent on us giving them the license. Since we are the board body that is allocating the license, I think that is a that is a conflict of interest. Had they just come in and offered the money, the story might be different, personally, from my perspective. But the fact that they had a contingent on something that we allocate, I think it was going to be lawsuits that would happen if they were to get it over someone else. And that is a thought. I can't be sure on that. And also on the basin, when we get there, I'd like to talk to make sure that we have vetted out any other solutions, because we are looking at a solution that was proposed since 1988. And if there is anything maybe more cost effective that would help us there. And I also too, when we get to the budget, is how can I make a decision and have a discussion if I don't know the cost or the revenue that these items are going to generate? I think it will be like throwing darts at a dartboard. And I think we needed a better product to have a discussion. I don't think it's adequate, be on the agenda in its state. And especially when we're talking about, we know a 10% cut, maybe a 25% cut, and a 50% cut in the revenue sharing. I'm extremely disappointed with what we received.
Thank you. Any other board members like to respond at this time?
And I do have one more, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay.
And I would hope that we would consider something for the land preservation. We did put a budget together. We did scale it back. And I think, maybe during this pandemic, we realized how important it is to have farms, and maybe local farms, especially with all the other processing facilities having issues. So you can still get food from your local farmer that is fresh and safe. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Manley had something to share.
Yeah, pretty much what Ms. Zelenak said. I wish we would have had numbers with the budget. That would have helped definitely a lot. And I'm hoping that Dan Willis might be able to speak later if there are any alternatives. And again, if you have anything on the deed restrictions. So same thing everybody else is curious about.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We have.
Ms. Chick has.
Go ahead. Ms. Chick?
I have my hand up, yep.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, basically, I stopped here, but what Ms. Amanda and Ms. spoke to. I know on some of the budget items, line items with figures attached to them, so what the cost of those items are, it should we go forward with it. But I agree that it would have been good to see, and I've never done it before, like if we could be provided with revenue projections for any of those items, so that we're not just cutting not only our costs, but we're cutting off revenue source as well. So that would be a good thing to do. And also on the deed restrictions, we keep talking about the deed restrictions, but is there, who's got a copy of it? We haven't seen anything. We've been talking about it for a couple of months. So if it's a deed restriction, it has to be recorded somewhere. And before we can make a decision, deed restriction or whether we have to have one, we have to see it. So that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Does Mr. Dockett have anything he'd like to chime in with?
Mr. Dockett said what?
Would you have anything you'd like to respond to the call to the
No,
public?
I didn't get on until just now.
Okay.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay, thank you.
I got something to say on the minutes when we get there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Miss Otto has a
comment. Yeah. So I did want to respond in regards to the land preservation. Lenore, you said that there was a budget that was put together by the Land Preservation Committee, and that was not presented to the board.
It is in the packet.
It's in the packet with the budget.
Okay, but I would have thought we would have gotten that before this. Was it just your last meeting that you guys did the
Yes, with the pandemic, we hadn't met for about 2 months, and then we met.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure it got on this meeting, since the budget discussion is really taking forth at this point in time. I'm certainly, we have our chair, Mr. Gordon, on the meeting, as well as our secretary, Ms. Prisnet. If you want them to do any presentation during the budget, I will offer them up, or I could do it as well.
No, I think if we have questions, we could ask during that time. The other thing that I wanted to bring up too was in regards to 75 Barker, I agree with Lenore. The board decided that they were not going to take offers on on a contingent basis. And so while people could have even offered triple or 5 times the amount of what the land was worth, if there was a contingency on it, we weren't going to take it. All the people that did do the offers at that time, they were aware of that, and so that's why we moved forward the way we did.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Otto. All right. Okay. I would just like to mention is relates to the basin, equalization basin, is that we have hired experts in this field, and this is what we're being told is going to be the best for us. So I really have to go with the experts that we have hired. That doesn't mean we don't look at things, and I've looked at a lot of stuff over the past 3 years for that equalization basin or alternatives. And there are things we can do, but it's not going to take away the importance of the equalization basin. So I have to say I'm all for it, and we'll see how that goes when we get to that line item. Anything else from any board member? Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item is the consent agenda. We have the township manager's report. Does anyone need anything explained any better than is currently in the report?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Zelnok.
Ms. Strains, at one point, what is your current plan to open up the office? When do we think we'll receive something?
Well, currently I'm told that I have to determine if there's an employee that's essential in order to allow them to come to the office, that I can't just do a blanket across the board, and it's not supposed to be for more than the time it's necessary to do those essential tasks. So for myself, I determined that was effective last Friday, and so I was in for 6 days now, 7 days, I guess. And you've already had both the deputy treasurer and deputy clerk have been in as needed, and Jennifer has been in, and Mary has been in, but nobody here for the full 40-hour week. So I'm relying on your attorneys to advise me when I can legally open the office. The other component of that is that the state says we have to have all of our rules and regulations in effect, and what I've been doing is, again, talking with the attorneys, but also reviewing the OSHA guidelines, the Township Association. I attended a webinar on how to reopen township halls and so forth, and it has to be pretty explicit, and I've been advised that even though I can copy some things from the chief's regulations, it needs to be specific to the office personnel. As far as the wastewater plant, people who are under my direction, they've been working the whole time. They just have been alternating shifts, so that there's only 2 of them working at the same time, so you don't have potentially a cross problem of getting all 4 or 5 of them sick. So I'm hoping to get that finished in a draft form by the end of this week to give it out to all the employees, to the board, to the chief, and to the attorneys, and have everybody get their comments back to me for next week. So I don't see us being able to open before the end of next week.
Okay, thank you. I mean, on behalf of the Treasurer's Department, we have been, as you said, Ms. Strains, going in, cash receipting. We've finished our settlement with the county, and we are getting into our busy time. Obviously, unfortunately, we have to get the tax bills out. So we will be starting that, certainly starting in June. We certainly hope we get all the taxing authority entities sending us the tax with this pandemic, but we will be busy up until, for a couple weeks. So I expect that we'll be in the office, or certainly Emily will, because I'm trying to figure out how I can go and be 6 feet apart in the office with her on some of these items. But we are starting a very busy time. We just finished a busy time and starting a new one.
Okay.
I guess the more people that stay away, the better we might be.
Another matter on that I might mention, Ms. Zelnok, is the MTA says that we are required to accept cash for any sort of legitimate payment, like taxes and so forth. So when we open, we're going to have to be in a position where we can accept the cash payments for the taxes and water sewer bills, and sewer bills.
Right. I have yep. Sorry, Mr. Ames. Go ahead.
No,
I have attended some webinars on that as well, about the cash payments. And what they basically have said is that pretty much after every cash payment, you should either have hand sanitizer, or you should go wash your hands. That is what they recommend if you're dealing with cash. So taking cash will be a little more time consuming, and we would prefer, obviously, if they pay by check. But you're right, we have to take cash. But the recommendation that I have seen in webinars is that you wash your hand after taking the cash after every cash transaction.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Ains?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Dockett is appearing on my screen. Mr. Dockett, do you have something you'd like to share?
No, I did, but I forgot what it was. Are you going on the minutes here pretty soon?
Yes, that's the next item. Oh, no.
That's the one I want to get in on.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda.
Support.
Who supported me?
Bellinger.
Bellinger. Okay, so a motion by Chalkley and support by Bellinger. Well, all in favor say aye. Is everyone unmuted so they can do this?
I thought we needed a roll call vote.
Yeah, we should.
Yep.
Okay, roll
For
call.
discussion on the motion, Madam Chair?
No, I don't have any. Does anybody?
Aye.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Zelnok.
As I stated in the board member comments, I don't think personally we have enough information to have a good budget discussion without having numbers. What are we going to discuss? How do I know the implications? So I would actually say that should be removed.
Okay.
If I could comment on that.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ames.
Okay, first off, the one list that has no dollar amounts to it is the compilation of all the recommendations by the board members, which I was bringing back to you to see which of those a majority of the board wanted us to pursue. But there's bigger questions involved with the overall revenue sharing and your financial picture and the reporting from the state. So the first thing I wanted to start with is talk about the revenue sharing and what the prospects are that you are going to get those amounts of money that we're being told we will at this point. And then I have some other specific areas to discuss. So it wasn't intended that you would make final decisions on all these things tonight, but that I give you those opportunities to direct me what you want to do.
Okay. Ms. Otto.
It was my understanding that we were supposed to bring suggestions of cuts to this meeting, and that this meeting was just going to be a discussion. This wasn't a time when we were going to make a decision on the budget. We had enough board meetings before the final budget needed to be approved, that we got to a point where we could make decisions on what needs to be cut, what doesn't. I don't even think that we're there yet. Even if I had numbers, we would have to have a draft of it in front of us in order to make sure that we're meeting the appropriate amount of what is left in our general fund. You know, if we're making that percentage and everything. So to me, this is just a preliminary discussion on our budget. We have probably another 2 more meetings before we have to make a decision.
Oh, I thought we have a hearing on the 9th.
Ms. Bellinger, go ahead.
I understand we have a budget hearing on the 9th, public hearing on the 9th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Certainly this needs to remain on the agenda, I believe, for discussion minimally and potentially for making some decisions. If we keep kicking the can down the road on this, we're going to be down to the wire and won't have a budget.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what I meant.
Yep.
We have the public hearing at the beginning, and we also can make a decision at the final. We decided that we weren't going to have the public hearing at the end of June,
right,
because we thought that would make it really short. So this gives us some buffer, and I don't feel that we should take this off.
No, I agree.
Do we
Okay.
need to vote on that motion?
We've got Ms. Zelnok wanting to include.
Right. My point is recommendations were made. I think the goal would have been for the township manager to put cost and revenue associated with that so we could have a really valid discussion. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, so it's difficult to say, yes, that's a good choice based on how much we're going to save. And so I find it difficult to discuss without having numbers.
okay.
Yes, I looked at some of the numbers. Yes, I pulled some of it. But I just don't think it's a good, valid discussion without numbers when you're talking about a budget.
Okay.
So that's just my point.
Well, we will get some work done. It won't be complete, but I think we can give some guidance to Mr. Ains. I'd like to take a roll call vote on the agenda. adopting the balance of the agenda.
Docket,
Oh, I got to unmute.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Zelenak,
No.
Manley, yes. Chick,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Shockley,
Yes.
6-1.
Thank you, that passes. Okay, the first item is the May 7th special meeting minutes. And Mr. Dockett had a comment on this.
Far right hand side, front page, bottom.
Yep.
Road Commission Dust Control Agreement.
Yeah.
7-1 on a roll call. I was not there.
Yes, you were not. Okay. We can get that corrected.
Thank you.
You have any other changes in this one, Mr. Dockett?
Yes.
No.
Okay, Ms. Zelnok, you have a
You
change?
should go to the end on the adjournment, 7-0.
Oh, and same problem, huh? Okay. And Ms. Chick? Did you have anything?
That's the same one.
You had the same thing? Okay. So we have two corrections that we're seeing for the May 7th, and we have to change the.
Ms. Bellinger had a comment as well.
Go ahead, Ms. Bellinger.
On the very front of the very first paragraph where it says call to order, it
Yes.
says by Supervisor Chalkley at 8350 Main Street. I don't know. We were not at that location, so I was curious on how that should be.
We could say by virtual meeting.
So I think in the other minutes for the 12th, it simply says the
via
meeting was called to order at. It doesn't have a location.
Okay.
And it says teleconference.
Yeah,
But
teleconference, yeah.
Okay. Let's just scratch at 8350 Main Street then. Okay.
You could make a mention it was a teleconference. It might be important to have that in there.
I think it would be important.
The second sentence, though, it says she explained that the meeting was being held via teleconference.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So that's there. All right, we'll scratch those 4 words and then change the 7 zeros to 6 zeros on the May 7th meeting. Okay, roll call vote.
I move to adopt the May 7th.
We got to have a motion in a second, sorry.
I move to adopt the May 7 minutes as amended.
Support.
Okay, motion by Bellinger, support by Chick? Chick. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Now, what are we voting on?
The May 7th minutes.
I thought we just did.
No, we had a couple other corrections after the one you found.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Chick,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes?
Manley, yes. Otto,
Yes.
Zelenak,
Yes.
Shockley,
Yes.
Docket,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes 7-0.
I move to approve the May 12th, 2020 Township Board minutes.
Okay, we have a motion by Bellinger and support by Chick. Okay, any corrections on here besides the few I see? I'll go through the few that I have found. The bottom of the second column on the first page, Carrie Lane is C-A-R-R-I-E. On the second page, smack dab in the middle on the first column, we need to delete the extra B in the first sentence, where it says Zelnok said she would like the developer held to his statements made in January that construction would begin instead of be began. And then the second column at the very bottom paragraph, it was agreed that changes made by the township attorney to the agreements be reviewed by Zelnok, Otto, and Chick. So we need to add by in front of Zelnok.
Is it agreements or documents?
Pardon?
Okay,
There's
never mind.
There's a by missing.
Okay.
Okay. And then those were all the ones that I had. Did anyone find anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Bellinger.
The first page under the subject on the right-hand side, minutes of the March 17th, 2020 board meeting. Chalkley moved, Otto seconded that. The minutes of the December 11th, 2019 regular meeting be approved.
Well, there likely was a meeting then.
But I don't recall on May 12th that we approved December minutes from December 11th.
You're right.
Does anyone, what minutes were indeed improved? Was it like a February meeting minutes or anybody?
Well, no, these were supposed to be the minutes of the March 17th.
Should be March 17th.
It was the March 17th meeting, and we were, yeah, it should be March 17th.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Oh, that got in there. I don't know.
She probably didn't update it.
Probably. Okay, that's a good catch. Okay, any other corrections?
One other correction, but I don't think it's actually, it is correct in the minutes, but we need to correct the record. On page 2, the left-hand side top, where we talk about the amount that was being spent for the road commission work. The math turns out, from what I can see, to be $15,040. Seems to be $100 off. But the minutes are correct in the fact that we did say at the meeting that we thought it was $15,140. But when I looked over the math, it looks like it's $100 different than that.
You are correct. I got the same number, 1540.
Okay.
Okay. You'd like that changed? Okay. 15. Might as well be accurate.
Madam Chair,
What?
can we, that is really what we said. May you do like a memo that says, correction, it truly is 15,040. I mean, I don't.
Just an extra little.
Yeah, I don't think you can change the minutes, can you?
Yeah.
I mean, from a procedural perspective.
In these minutes we're making for tonight's meeting, we could add that into tonight's minutes that we corrected that dollar amount.
You could, or yes, correct.
That would be the correct thing to do.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't think you can go back and change the minutes of what was said.
Exactly.
It's a procedural item.
Okay, that was not an error. That was an error that we picked up later. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So, Ms. Lemble, can you make a note on these, the meetings from tonight, that is a correction that we are noting? Okay. So we have a motion by Ms. Bellinger and support by Ms. Chick to adopt the May 12th minutes as amended. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Docket.
What we're voting on, the minutes?
Yes.
The second minutes.
Yeah. Are you changing something in them or what?
We have several,
Yes, the corrections. Is that what we're voting on?
yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes, we're voting
Or
on,
are we voting on the corrections or are we voting on to accept them?
we're voting on the minutes as amended.
Okay. Thank you.
That's your vote.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Okay, Docket.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Zelenak.
Yes.
Shockley.
Yes.
Otto.
Yes.
Chick.
Yes.
Manley, yes.
Okay, thank you. That passed 7-0.
The next item,
The next item, I
I
would,
move to accept the purchase agreement to sell 75 Barker to Munger Ventures LLC for $112,500 and to authorize the township manager, Steve Ains, to sign the purchase agreement and development agreement pending attorney approval.
I'll second that.
Of course, all the details are in the agreements with regards to the parking lot and so forth and the other provisions.
Okay. So now it's time for discussion. Do we have any items, anything that anyone is concerned with on this one?
I have something to say about it.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
We've had that property for over 80 years, the people of the township own that property. This board should not take it upon themselves to sell this property without some sort of a vote from the people. And I think you're gonna all be damn sorry that you sold this building if that's what you vote on. I'm gonna vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Seeing, oh, Ms. Zelnok.
So I talked to Ms. Fink today.
Yes.
The one item I thought is we should have something about the parking that would be allocated or deeded to the township. Who actually controls the fee, if there was a fee, on the parking?
Mm-hmm.
That I think we discussed, and that there would be some verbiage that says that township would be the person that would control a potential fee, not saying that there would be one.
Okay, thank you.
That it would be within the township's hand for the public parking.
I also spoke to Ms. Fink about the same item, only mine had a different nuance. I was interested in making sure that a minimum of 24 or 25 spots were always maintained for public parking, which is, there's 33 on there right now if you look at it, 33, 32, and Mr. Munger needs 8 for his. So the remaining spots would be 24, 25. And I thought that would be easier than doing some sort of a delineated survey of an easement area. And I spoke with Ms. Fink about it, and she said, and we brought up also the parking fee issue, and those items would be part of the development agreement. The important thing that we do tonight is to approve the actual purchase agreement, and that those other details can be figured out by Mr. Ains, the attorney, and Mr. Munger, and hopefully we would just allow the township manager to sign the both agreements when they're completed, although we would approve the purchase agreement tonight.
Madam Chair, what was the motion again?
The motion, though, was for both items. Purchase agreement, development agreement, pending attorney approval, so that would take care of it. The development agreement needs a little more negotiation, as far as I understand. And I see Ms. Chick with her hand up.
Ms. Bellinger had her hand up, and then Ms. Chick.
Okay. We'll go ahead with Ms. Bellinger then.
I kind of taken off guard a little bit if we have a situation here where Munger Ventures is going to maintain a public parking lot. It seems a little curious that we would even entertain potentially charging people to park there. That's just my thought.
Yeah. Ms. Chick?
Yeah, on the development agreement, it's page 3, item number 3 under development, and then item G. I want to understand that paragraph. It's about delays. Last sentence is, if commencement is expected to be delayed by more than 7 days, developer must inform the township in writing citing the reasons for the delay. So my question is, and I don't know if it's written in the contract or if it's something that can be added. So how often do we allow delays to happen? And yeah, I guess that's my question. How often do we allow delays to continue? You can do one delay for one reason, one delay for another reason. How long do you let it go before it becomes?
Okay. We have our attorney on watching the video here. She's actually available to speak to these items. So I'm, Ms. Fink, are you able to address the concerns?
Madam Chair, before we continue, first of all, I didn't give up the floor.
Oh.
And The other thing is if we're going to ask Ms. Fink some questions,
Okay.
I would like to ask my questions first so that she can answer all of them.
Okay, shall we make a list?
I think that might be a good idea.
Okay,
Again, I have spoken with Ms. Fink today, so she may recall. So one of them was, how is this agreement going to work if he is to expand the parking lot? Right,
Okay.
there's something in there that if it gets expanded, what happens to parking allocated to the township?
Okay.
And then I can't remember what page it is. It's in the it's in the development agreement on page 4. First, number 10 at the top, it just says that the township could terminate after 180 days. I was wondering, is that too many days? I'm not sure what would be really, that's 6 months, seems like a long time. So I don't know if it's better to have more days or less days. I don't usually write these agreements. So I think that covers my items that I had discussed with Ms. Fink this morning. Thank you.
I have a simple typo.
okay,
I can mention a typo on page 5 of the development agreement. Under item number 11, in the middle of that paragraph, a line that begins with the word obligation. Obligation which has not been undertaken or properly fulfilled.
correct.
It says property on mine.
Yes, you're right. Okay. Any other comments about the development agreement or the purchase agreement that Ms. Fink could answer at this point? I only had one thing else that I would like to bring up, and it talks about signage. So lighting and signs, this is on page 4 of the development agreement. And I was just wondering about a public parking sign out front. It seems to me that if it's public parking, we ought to let people know that it's public parking. It seems like right now, a lot of the public don't even know it's public parking because our signage out on the street isn't really adequate. So perhaps something can be discussed about having appropriate signage out front. And maybe there could be some sort of a joint arrangement with the DDA, the township, or something for a nice consistent look to our wayfinding signage downtown at some point. So I'll leave that to our attorney for her comments also. Any other questions that we can leave for Ms. Fink to answer? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Fink. See what you can do to answer our questions.
I did have a question.
You did have one, okay.
I had my hand raised.
Sorry, I've got this big box over the wrong side of your picture. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Otto.
So the only concern that I have is that that there's still question on the development agreement. I do agree in signing the purchase agreement, but I feel that I'd like to see the development agreement back to the board again before we have that one signed. That's the only thing I'm gonna make that. I do know that, I do agree that that it does go in front of the attorney. They review it and they do their best, but I'd like to be able to see that development agreement again.
Okay.
Before signature.
We'll see if your fears can be allayed by our attorney. Anyone else needing to speak at this time? Okay. I don't see anybody else. Okay. Oh, one attendee has a hand up. Who is that? Oh, Miss Fink, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. This is not my first Zoom meeting, but my first Zoom Township Board meeting, so it's kind of interesting. I want to, before I get to the question about the expansion of the parking lot, I just wanted to address the question of the fee. The conversation about a fee to park in the parking lot was really not, will the township have a fee, but if there is going to be a fee, who should be in charge of that? And one of the things that was discussed is if the parking lot is being held open to the public, but the developer decides he wants to charge $25 a parking spot, maybe that defeats the purpose of it being a public parking lot. So maybe we wanted to have some language about that in the development agreement. I personally think it's a great idea. So we're going to try to hammer that situation out. How is the agreement going to work if there's an expansion to the parking lot or if another building is placed on the property? I think that we can have some flexibility in the language in the development agreement that talks about those two possibilities. If there is another building placed on the property, the public parking would not be diminished in any way. So he would have to, the developer would have to then build new parking spaces to replace any parking spaces that his new building took up. And then also there's been some conversation about expanded parking without a new building. And I think that it would be perfectly appropriate for the township to have some claim to a portion of that also. And whether that is that the township gets every spot that isn't needed for whatever the developer is using, or if it's a percentage basis, or I'm not exactly sure what that is going to end up being, but I think that that's a great conversation to have, and some flexibility that we could build into the development agreement. With the understanding that if the developer came back for any type of permits for buildings or expanded parking, we would go to that section and make sure that any change to the property was in compliance with the development agreement. I think I like the idea about the joint arrangement for a wayfinding sign that is easily recognizable by the public. I think that's a great idea. Right now, the language is just basically just says that any future signage or lighting has to meet the standards for the township. So we could definitely propose a change to that. Thank you for pointing out the typos. That's always helpful. I like to say everyone needs an editor, so I appreciate that. And then I did not understand Ms. Otto's comment as a question necessarily, so I'm not going to address that unless she had something specific that she wanted me to say. Whether or not the development agreement comes back to you is entirely up to you.
Oh, okay. Ms. Chick.
My question wasn't answered about the development agreement. How many delays are we allowing?
Oh, yes. I apologize about that. It really is, it's not, it shouldn't be continuous delays. It should just be once the project has, this is about when the project commences.
Right.
So he's supposed to commence within 30 days. If there's, unless he's delayed or prohibited by a stay-at-home order, he is required to commence within 30 days. If his commencement is expected to be delayed by more than 7 days, then he would give the township the reason in writing. But it doesn't say then he can keep stopping and starting. I mean, that we don't have any way to control that. But it is supposed to be completed within 18 months. So I should give him plenty of time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone's questions answered so far?
Miss Supervisor Rob Munger has his hand up to speak.
Yes, that would be nice to hear from Mr. Munger. Go ahead, Mr. Munger. Good evening. He's unmuted. Okay.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Munger.
Yeah.
It's not coming in. Can we?
Actually, I do not. I'm at a board meeting, but I saw it was you, so I picked it out.
Okay. I can't hear Mr. Munger at all. Mr. Munger? Would you like to call me on my phone, Mr. Munger? Maybe I can hold it up to my speakers on my computer. Okay.
Arlene, there is an area that questions and answers can be typed in if he's having a problem.
He's calling right now.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Munger.
Sorry about this.
Can you all hear?
Hello?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Munger.
Yes.
Can you? Okay, the board can hear that apparently. Okay, go ahead.
Good. I was just wanting to ask for clarification for the public parking. That's also public parking that my customers or a tenant's customers can utilize, isn't it? It started sounding a little bit like my customers would be prohibited from using the parking, and it would only be used for other people.
Right. No, that I don't believe that's anyone's intention.
Okay.
Ms. Fink, can you verify that?
Yeah, that is not the intention. The intention is that there would be the 8 spaces that Mr. Munger wanted to be held specifically for his tenants, and the rest of the parking would be for the general public, which may or may not include some of his tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then as far as losing space, I feel like as long as I meet all parking requirements, if I put up an additional building, why in this development agreement, I get them that it's being implied that I need to have extra spaces because I'm going to put up an additional building, which that's, I think the intent is for me to create new development in the area. I am planning on putting up an additional parking, but let's just say I put up a building and I take out 6 spaces or 10 spaces, and I can only put up 8 spaces, additional spaces, and that still meets the Planning Commission's guidelines. So, I don't feel like I should be held to a higher standard than what's already met. And, I have to meet all planning township requirements.
Right. Oops, sorry.
Right.
And then I'm getting asked about me starting and stopping. And tonight, we've been on this, kind of pushed this along for a long time. And I'm asking the same question of you guys is, hey, I want to get to work. And if we wait for another time, everybody's stuck with a stay at home. So my construction time keeps getting backed up. And in Michigan, we have winter. We're just getting summer right now, but if it takes let's say another month and another 2 months to close, I'm in August. And then it's a pinch time. And then you guys are saying to me, well, why aren't you getting things done? Well, we need to make a decision tonight. And that development agreement, I've looked at it for over 2 months, and there's been numerous emails. So I feel like we can keep escalating, but we need to make a decision tonight. And I'm trying to be as nice about it as possible and respectful, but
Yeah.
We need to know whether, hey, are you going to sell it to me or aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get going. So there's no question of me getting my stuff, you know, together and get the construction done. It's just I need to get the property if I'm going to do it.
It's totally understandable. Okay.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
I don't want to hog the floor.
Well, thank you. You know, but it's great that you chimed in, and I agree. I think we need to be business friendly, and I think Mr. Munger is doing a good thing for our community, and he's bending over backwards, I think, to do what he needs to do. So, yeah, I would appreciate it if we could just get this done, and so there could be some moving forward instead of this treading water that we do. So, did everyone get their questions answered about the development agreement?
I did. I want to ask a question.
Go ahead, Mr.
I want to make a statement.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
I don't think that we should be getting in a hurry. I don't think anyone should force us to be in a hurry. We need to know, you know, this deal gets worse and worse and worse as it goes. It sounded pretty good at first, but now we just keep taking things away. This is not a good deal for the people in Northfield Township, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Chick.
Yeah, real quickly, I just wanted to say Mr. Munger is absolutely correct in that he is only required to have enough parking spaces as the ordinance requires him to have. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Zelnok.
So yeah, I just wanted some clarification on that. So, Mr. Munger, if you built a new building, you would put in the parking that's required for your building, basically. And that's what you're saying. You may have some extra parking, and it may or may not be used by the township. That would be kind of be your call. Is that my understanding?
If I put in extra parking, I figure all parking is going to be available to the public. I'm not going to have tow-away signs. You know, it'll be probably, whether it's the city or me, if there are people parking their car there for a week, then the city doesn't want that. The township doesn't want that. But there's going to be no restrictions. I have zero intent on charging anybody. I mean, there's just not the density there that would merit charging rent or, you know, parking for that space. And I understand the township's intent is for this to be a real positive igniter for the community. So I sure in heck wouldn't want to go against your intent. And my intent is that it's a very positive place that people could pull in, park, you know, hopefully walk down by the lake, or, you know, go to a store.
They just throw it in the towel.
Okay.
So, if I may, Mr. Munger, so one of the items that I had raised is to make sure that the public parking space allocated, which I think Ms. Shockley had indicated would be approximately 24 spaces, that, you know, if we would have, meaning the township, any say over if there was a fee. So are you objecting to that, or?
Which is totally fine with me.
Okay. Got it.
I don't plan on charging it, so you can have this. You can have total control over it.
Okay. Yeah, no one. You know that. Thank you. That answers it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have one change to the. Well, just I spoke with Ms. Fink earlier about the real estate purchase agreement and 9F, where it's talking about the firehouse on the property is a non-conforming building that does not meet the required setbacks for the zoning district, and there are no setbacks in the Whitmore Lake downtown district. as far, except for the 30 feet in the rear of the property. There's 0 side and 0 front setbacks. So I just thought we should strike off, it might be a non-conforming building, I can't say that, but it does meet the setbacks for the zoning district, and I just wanted to strike that little bit. Ms. Otto?
I do agree with that, but it does not meet the code. There's some code enforcement, and I think that's going to be addressed when he does his planning and everything. Because as you recall, if anybody would have used that building, they had to at least do something with the windows that were facing the house next door. The house was too close to the building, according to the code, the building code. So I think those things could be addressed. He would have to address that with the state. But you're right as far as the zoning district.
Right.
Setbacks.
Okay. So that was my only thing there. Okay. Are we to the point where we can actually make a decision here? So we had a motion.
Let's say call the question.
Yes. Let's call the question on the purchase agreement, and then, well, you have it on both.
Was combined.
Yep, you have it combined.
Yep. Well, mine was a purchase agreement. I move to accept the purchase agreement to sell 75 Barker to Munger Ventures LLC for $112,500 and to authorize Township Manager Steve Ains to sign the purchase agreement and development agreement pending attorney approval.
Okay. So we have a motion by Bellinger with support by Chalkley. Let's do a roll call.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Zelenak.
No.
Dockett.
No.
Manley. Yes. Chalkley.
Yes.
Otto.
I really wanted to see the development agreement first before we have it signed. But I am not going to stop that from moving forward. So I'm going to vote yes.
Check.
Yes.
Is that 5-2?
Is that everybody? 5-2?
Yes.
Okay. And so the board can see the development agreement at any point.
I just felt that we had too many things that were lingering on that, that it needed to be a lot cleaner before we got to the point where we just gave somebody a carte blanche to sign it.
Okay. I really don't feel it's that way. I think I put a lot of faith in our attorney and our township manager to finish this up appropriately. And I think we have a much stronger agreement than we did in the beginning. And there has been a lot of good input from the board. So I really appreciate this. And I'm excited that we can move forward finally with this. The next question is, what do we do with Kiwanis? But that's the next question. So anyway, Ms. Zelnok?
So I'd just like to say, I do thank Mr. Munger for making the changes that we requested at the board meeting. It was a very difficult decision as I walked the property on Friday, and it certainly is the main property. So Mr. Munger, even though I didn't vote for it, I hope you deliver on what you said you would and make it a center point of our town. But I do appreciate the changes you made to the purchase agreement and the one development. I took notice of that. As far as Kiwanis goes, Madam Chair, I have been, as you may know, I'm on the board. My decision had nothing to do with that. I have had the meeting. I told them we needed a meeting to make plans to evacuate as soon as possible. And that was last week. There are plans to talk to Ann Arbor Club and to get out as soon as possible. So I did make them aware that I thought it would be sold at this meeting and that we needed a meeting to make a plan to get out. So we have a plan. we're executing it. Ann Arbor Kiwanis Club is coming on Thursday, and we're hoping that they take a lot of our treasures, and then we'll go from there. But we are moving forward as soon as possible, and we have met. So,
Okay. Thank you. Oh, Ms. Otto?
I just wanted to reiterate what Lenore said. I stopped by there today, and they are in the process of working through their plan. And I think that within a week or within 2 week time, it would be cleared.
Okay. Well, I know the Kiwanis is held in very high esteem in the community, and I bet if you need volunteers, all you got to do is raise your hand, and you'll have people there with face masks.
yeah, well, Madam Chair, that's the issue, is with the coronavirus, how many people do you want there? And
no more than 10.
Well, no more than 10, and make sure you're social distance. And we are an older group, meaning our people are a little older, so they have more health concerns, and it creates, items that we're working through to make sure that we keep our members safe, keep the community safe. So we are working through that.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Otto. Thank you, Ms. Zelnick, for all you do for Kiwanis. And I guess Ms. Bellinger has something to say, and then we can probably let Mr. Munger go.
Yeah, I just would like to thank Mr. Munger for his interest in our community. I am very much looking forward to seeing what will come of 75 Barker. I'm very hopeful that it will indeed. There'd be a very good chance that it will become a centerpiece we can be proud of in the community. And so thank you, and thank the board for, this has not been easy. I understand for the board members, this has not been easy dialogue with 75 Barker. And if I can help with moving some stuff, go ahead and somebody let me know. If it's okay, can I make a motion now for the next item?
Okay, I'm getting asked if we can let Ms. Fink go for the rest of the meeting. Does anyone have anything that they believe Ms. Fink needs to be on for?
What's your motion, Ms. Bellinger?
It would be to hire the.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it's just the next agenda item?
Yes.
Right.
Well, I think we need to close out this one first, and then we can move on.
Right.
Right. So I believe we're done with this one. We'll just allow the attorney and Mr. Ains to work with Mr. Munger to finish that up. Okay. And Mr. Munger says thank you. So, so there we are.
Can we get a target date when it's completed so that it's not hanging out there?
A target date for
the agreement finished?
Well, I think he'd like it within 30 days.
Well, can we set a date?
Well, I think he's going to move forward as quickly as possible. Maybe Ms. Fink would. Yeah. Ms. Fink, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. Do you have an idea of when this would be completed?
Well, the number 10 on the purchase agreement says if the offer is accepted by seller, blah, 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 purchaser agrees to complete the transaction and close the sale not later than 45 days after the signing of this purchase agreement. So there's the deadline. Obviously, the development agreement must be done before we can close but we're working on it. I know that you wish that it didn't have so many moving parts, but it does. So we're working on it, but the 45 days should be more than enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, I mean, I know it says 45 days. Can we get it done sooner? I mean,
oh yeah,
I agree with Ms. Chick. Can we have it done in 2 weeks, Ms. Fink? Is that going to give enough time within a week?
Well, it's not entirely up to me because there's still some negotiation that needs to be done with Mr. Munger.
Right. Okay.
So I wouldn't be able to put a hard deadline on that.
Okay. So we'll have a report back at our next board meeting.
Yes.
And we're hopeful that it will be done.
We will do our best.
Okay. So until the 40 days up, I guess I would expect that you would come back and report to where you are on each, or through the township manager, that where they're done or not. So I would say that the township manager will report every meeting on where we are And hopefully Ms. Spink and Mr. Munger, you can get it done by our next board meeting and we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Munger. Okay. The next item, we need to strike Kyle Burke's name. There's only one paid on-call firefighter trainee to be hired.
Okay, can I make the motion? I move to have Chief Wagner approve the hire of Luke King as paid on-call firefighter trainee at a rate of $10.50 per hour. The hiring would be contingent upon the successful passing of a physical and background check.
Okay, motion by Bellinger.
Or by Chick.
Okay. Mr. Wagner, did you want to say anything about this?
No, I don't think I have anything. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay. Okay, any comments then? Roll call, please.
Chick,
Yes.
Manley, yes. Bellinger,
Yes.
Zelenak,
Yes.
Docket,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Hockley,
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to move on to the next agenda item. I move to approve the cash farm lease for $150 with Lee Mulbatch for the 2020 farm season at 2727 North Territorial, Fire Station 2, and authorize township manager to sign the lease.
I'll support that. Any discussion?
So I have a question
Okay, go ahead.
as to why this didn't come through the township manager or bill.
Why it didn't come through the township mayor, I don't know.
Okay. I would have thought that this type of agreement would have come through him.
Well,
And is it, and it is Steve that's signing it, so that's why I would have thought the memo would have come through him.
yeah.
It's a
Well,
minute.
it came, I was notified that the money came in, and I don't know why it didn't. It could have, you know what kind of a rush it is to get these packets done, and sometimes it's just helpful to have more people working on it. So I looked into it and wrote the memo.
I think in the future, we need to have Steve take more accountability for these type of things. Thank you.
Whatever you want. Okay. Roll call.
Senator Shockley, Ms. Zelenak had a question.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Elna.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm a little confused on who's running the meeting tonight.
Good question. What do you mean by that?
I believe it's, you are the supervisor, you should be running the meeting and the agenda.
Okay.
items.
I do the best I can getting stuff done. And, I try to be helpful, and we can crab at each other about all sorts of stuff. But, for Pete's sakes, we're all in this together. Let's work together. And, it's not a big deal. I was trying to be helpful. So anyway, let's have a roll call and get this over with.
Manley, yes. Bellinger,
Yes.
Zelenak,
Yes.
Docket,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Hockley,
Yes.
Chick,
Yes.
7-0.
7-0, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for the next item, to authorize the proposed procedure to allow for electronic payments for the applicable play path purchases.
I'll support.
Related to the Kaboom grant.
Related to the, play path.
Kaboom grant.
Okay. Related to the Kaboom grant. Okay,
Yeah.
and Ms. Otto seconded. Do we have any more discussion on this one? Okay, roll call, please.
Lenore has a question.
Madam Chair, just to let you know, as you may, yes, not a question, just a comment. As you saw in the memo, we kind of went back and forth. We would like to start to do bond payments through the ACH process, but we will come back. And we would like to start distributing tax payments, certainly to the Whitmore Lake School. So we will come back again with that, but we just wanted to get this going. And it, as you saw, it was approved by the auditors. Ms. Carlisle sent it to them. And wanted to make sure that they understood what we were doing as well. But again, we will be coming back and to do some more ACH, but we wanted to move this forward.
Okay, thank you. And I do understand there's a draft policy available from the MTA that I had forwarded when I saw this come up, because, you know, I thought, well, how does this all work together? So, so I guess maybe some version of that may come to us.
And I'm going to contact, so the treasurers, when we go to the treasurer meeting, some treasurers like to do the ACH, some don't. I know even Green Oak, even though it's in, not in our county, I know that Susan Doherty, the treasurer there, does the ACH certainly to the school, so I will investigate their policies as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Did we do, let's see, we did our roll call on that?
No.
Nope, not yet.
Let's do our roll call.
Docket? Mr. Docket?
What's that?
What's your vote?
Are we voting on what? Number 6?
The electronic payments.
Electric payment?
Yes.
For Barker Road? Yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. My vote is yes.
Thank you. Zelenak?
Yes.
Bellinger?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Chick?
Yes.
Shockley?
Yes.
Manley? Yes. That's everyone.
Okay, the next item was mostly for information for you all. This is what Urban County Cooperative does, the Urban County group that I go to. And basically, it was started with the township, I think well before 2003, but it has 3-year extensions on it that are automatically extended unless we move to get out of it. So it's time's up for the next 3-year extension, and we don't need to take any action on this. It will be automatically extended, but I want to make sure that you had information on what Urban County does and the original that was signed. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have questions.
Go ahead.
I have comments.
Okay. Go ahead.
Who's going ahead?
You.
Excuse me?
I'll answer any questions you have if you ask me. What's up?
Are you talking the docket?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yes. You brought this up. You are pushing this. This is for 3 years extension. You're not running again.
Nope.
I don't like the idea of us forcing a board into a 3-year extension on an agreement. So I don't think it's fair for that, and I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Bellinger?
These pages are not numbered, but looking at the back of the document, go to the second to last page. The page that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. The second one down, I find it a little bit insulting to our public safety department. It says that the community has adopted and is enforcing a policy prohibiting the use of excessive force by law enforcement agencies within its jurisdiction against any individuals engaged in nonviolent civil rights demonstrations, and a policy of enforcing applicable state and local laws against physically barring entrance to or exit from a facility or location which is the subject of such nonviolent civil rights demonstrations within its jurisdictions. I just find that language to be quite insulting. I just have an issue with a few things in here. There's a couple of little things that make me queasy, you know, like they will be determining how things will be done and so forth and what will be permitted. But that paragraph just really disturbed me. I cannot support something that would be so, in my opinion, kind of berate or belittle our public safety department. That's all. And don't take anything personal. It's just I find that troubling in this agreement, in this document.
Okay. I don't think that our police officers would use excessive force against anything like that anyway.
That's basically my point.
Right. But maybe some communities would, and there are 20, and I doubt it, but there are 20 communities involved in Urban County. And, you know, so this encompasses the entire county. So, and we didn't write it, it was way back when, and they're not going to change it just because of us. But we get a little bit of money every year. We were able to put the sidewalk in. We were able to do our community center parking. And it's just helpful to belong to a group like this that can manage all of the details of all of that. I don't know whose hand was up first. I see Kathy Manley.
I mean, is this any kind of binding agreement, or?
Yes.
Like somebody said, you know, like if a new board comes in, can we withdraw at that point? I mean, what kind of commitment is this?
Only what you see in here, as far as I know. Otherwise, we're given the money back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. It allows them to plan, and that's why they have like these 3-year extensions. So
I have an issue with it. I was thinking to the future.
Oh, okay. Ms. Chick, you had her hand up, I see.
Yeah, I think our township, and I'd like Mr. Wagner to address Tom's concern that we have a policy of not, using or being forceful to nonviolent demonstrations. If Mr. Wagner could address that, do you have a problem with that paragraph?
My point is not that our department. The point is that we even entertain a document that could even suggest our department would be that way. That is my point.
The way I read it, the way I read this is that Northfield Township would have adopted a policy. We obviously have a policy within the police department against excessive force. So the way I read this, does Northfield Township, the community, they adopted a policy prohibiting that.
And we have, apparently. Okay. Who else? Miss Otto?
Yeah, and that was one of my questions, and thank you, Bill, for commenting on it. The other question that I have is that unlike other groups that we belong to, we're not paying a fee or a annual fee to belong to this. This is something that we belong to, and we get advantages of going in the ability to get community block grants and get grants.
Right.
It's just an opportunity for us. So us being in there for 3 years, either we use it or we don't use it. I mean, really, that's what it amounts to.
Right.
And it also costs us additional general fund money to use it, to get our money back.
What? Oh, well, we wouldn't get it.
We have to we have to kick money in order to supposedly get our money back.
Well, that's only because we had the priority grant, and I suggested that we match that with $35,000 to improve our chances of getting the extra $91,000, which I think is a good deal. The reason it's federal money. There are lots of strings attached to federal money, and I'm finding that has been very difficult to manage this upcoming community center grant because it has to meet all of these requirements. And the advantage of being a part of urban county is they take care of making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So that has been really, really helpful as far as that goes. Our community would get very little community development block grant money per year because we're so small, and the formula, and because of the formula, we'd get probably 14,000 a year, and then we would have to use it according to all of the rules that are required because it's federal money. So it's really helpful to have it go through the urban county. They can take care of our poor.
Madam, I'm afraid I may lose my phone. My battery is beeping. If you don't hear from me, you'll know that my battery went dead in my phone.
Okay. Well, thank you,
I'm going to stay here, but I'm hearing beeping in my phone, so I don't know how long it'll last. But thank you for excuse me for butting in, but
that's okay. Maybe you can go get your charger and plug it in.
I'm plugged in, but I'm not hung up, and I have to, the kind of phone I got, I have to hang it up in order for it to charge.
Okay. Okay.
So, okay.
Thank you.
It may be all right, but it's beepy.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm not making a motion to take any action because I would like us to just go ahead and extend. So if I don't hear objection, I'm going to move on to the next item.
We're not going to vote on 7?
We don't need to.
We're not voting on it.
If somebody
Well, I
wants
object. Why don't we do a roll call vote on accepting to another 3-year extension?
We have a motion.
Okay, what's your motion to accept another 3-year extension?
That's my motion. I make a motion that we accept the Washtenaw Urban County Cooperative Agreement extension for 3 years.
I'll support.
Okay. Motion by Zelnok, support by Otto. Do we have any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
On what?
The Urban County Cooperative Extension.
Oh, okay. I thought we were okay. All right.
I thought we were done too, but we can actually affirm the fact that we are in the extension. Okay.
Zelnok,
Yes.
Shockley,
Yes.
Mellinger,
No.
Manley, yes. Chick, you're muted.
We'll have to unmute you.
Okay. Otto,
Yes.
Docket, Mr. Docket,
No.
Okay. That passes 5-2. Thank you. Okay. On to number 8.
Thank you for using the packet number.
Oh, okay. You're welcome. This is the retention tank. Somebody has their
I
hand.
move that the township proceed with the advertisement for the general obligation bond.
Okay, motion by Bellinger. I'll support that, unless somebody else really wants to. Okay, and Ms. Bellinger would like to speak to that?
Yes, I have a question. Do we have just basically an idea of what the cost difference is per quarter for the users? Whether they would go with a revenue bond or we go with a general bond, obligation bond? Are they going to see $1 different per quarter? Are they going to see $5 different per quarter? I don't know if there's a rough estimate. I'm sorry, I don't have some of the older documents. Maybe somebody does have just a ballpark. My thoughts are the general bond is a little less expensive per quarter for the users, but either bond is fine with me. I think the work needs to be done.
Okay.
So that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you.
My
I could answer that.
Oh, go ahead. You can go ahead and talk, Mr. Ains. Go ahead.
Okay. These are approximate numbers because the next step would be to do a salary rate study or a rate study. But it's estimated that it'd be about $5 difference between the two. So So you're probably looking at $15 a quarter if you were to go ahead with the general obligation bond, and 20 a quarter if you went with the revenue bond. And the main reason for that is that the revenue bond, you have to have a 10% amount put up front to keep in escrow.
Right. And the difference between...
Can I add one more thing?
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Maureen.
Ms. Bell.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. If we move forward, we then would be certain that the property is, the property's deeded is clear, free and clear for the construction with regards to the concerns at Fair Oaks or the Green Oak residents.
If I could respond to that also.
Please.
Our attorney is still looking into the matter. It's not that we have turned down any comment that they have made. We're looking into it, but we don't have a firm answer. But what we have been advised is that during this time period that you'd be moving forward with the 45-day notice, that there's no reason to stop that process. If we were to find a difficult issue, then we would be able to stop it before you issued bonds. But we don't think that's the case. A little bit of history. What we have seen is what was presented to the Planning Commission. I believe it was in 1989 that makes reference to that. But in 1999, you had the GRIP building built at the plant. And so, you know, we're not sure what happened in between those 10 years that would have allowed that second construction. I had Dan try to reach the past superintendent. Apparently he was not familiar with the detail on it. But we do need to move ahead. And as I mentioned on the item 1, the state is still very adamant about, due to the flooding issues that we're having, that we proceed with this, or they will come back and require us to do that. If they do, then there won't be a referendum opportunity. It would just be an order that we would have to go ahead and proceed with either way.
Okay. So my look at it, the difference is $780,788 of an increased cost over the 10 years if we go with the revenue bonds, and which amounts to about $39,000 a year extra. It just seems, I mean, if I was refinancing a house, I would certainly get the lesser cost for, you know, to pay. And so since I'm looking at our customers thinking, you know, okay, it's only maybe $5 a quarter or, you know, whatever, it adds up over the years. And I would just prefer that we do it at the least cost for them. And I'm not concerned about us not being able to pay it, because I'm confident that we can have an appropriate rate that is set for it. So that's why I'm supporting the general revenue bond. We have other ones who would like to talk. Anyone else? Ms. Elnack.
So when would we issue these bonds, or when would we issue the notification?
You have to advertise it for 45 days. Normally, we are able to publish it between 4 and 6 business days after you would take action. And so that would make it around 50-some days. And at that point, the board would decide whether you wish to proceed with it. And that's when you would have your project go out for bid.
When would we publish it?
We should publish it November 1st.
The stay-at-home order issued by our governor is June 12th at this point in time.
Right.
It seems disingenuous if we publish it before June 12th, because part of it is a petition can be gathered, but how can you gather a petition if you have to stay at home? And that's my question. So when would it be published?
Well, the earliest it could be published would be about 6 days from now. Now, the board can tell us to hold off publication until after the governor lifts the order, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so that's one. And Ms. Chick, I was incorrect in giving you information on the revenue bond. That can be referendum, as we see in our packet, and my apologies for that information. I will not say something unless I have it in front of me, the document that I thought I read. So my apologies for that. And again, we think it's $5, but we don't know. I think that's information that we need to know when we make these decisions. I think it's closer to $3, but I don't have the numbers in front of me at this point in time, unfortunately. And when do we send the postcard that's part of our ordinance?
My understanding from the bond attorney that goes out when you get ready to borrow the money. And
so that happens after the referendum period of time.
After the 45 days, yes.
Okay. Is there a way we can alter our ordinance to send it out during the referendum time period? I think that would be the intent, right? Hey, you guys, we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm. I suspect you can, but I'm not the legal advisor.
Okay. Yeah. And the seems like the big elephant in the room right now is, what about the deed restriction? So we're going to make a motion to go out and publish, and are we 100% sure that the deed restriction does not exist, isn't enforceable? I'm confused.
Well, the initial letter that was raised by the attorney for the parties that are concerned about it was addressed to the Planning Commission in Green Oak Township and indicated that they realized it was not up to the township to enforce that, but they asked them to anyway. This has been on hold because we haven't had a chance to go back to meet with their Planning Commission because they canceled a lot of meetings just like we had to. So until it goes before them, we don't know if it'll clear that stage. The other thing we're trying to do is find the records, and since we haven't had people in the office except for immediate, necessary activity, we haven't had anybody to go look for the records. So we have to find what exactly took place during that time period. And so our attorney advises us that we should go ahead and start the process and then verify what the condition is. But that's up to you. If you want to wait, that's your choice, but it's just the longer you wait, then it kicks it further into next year.
But, I want to be clear that certainly we need something, and wet weather is just going to continue to happen. And we've seen the report from Evan Pratt, our own wastewater, or not wastewater, but I call it the Drain Commission, but the water resource, that, the ground is saturated. It's probably going to continue that way. Mm-hmm. Let's really think, what date are we going to publish it? Do we wait until after the stay-at-home order? What is the difference between the revenue bond and the general bond to the customers? And I think it would be important to have the deed restriction done and make that a priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Then Ms. Manley, then Ms. Otto.
I guess simple question for Steve. Have we looked at the deeds? I mean, through Livingston County Register of Deeds, has anybody looked at those? I mean, it should be a simple process.
Well, except my understanding is that Livingston County, Washington County, etc., have had their offices closed except for essential obligations or tasks. So I think that's one of the reasons our attorney has not been able to verify it.
Can you do it online? I mean, okay. Like there should be a way to get it. Washington County.
I'll talk to Mr. Fink again. I've talked to him several times about it. He was researching it.
Okay. Ms. Chick?
So I guess why can't we just be proactive and call Livingston County and ask them if they have one on file for that piece of property instead of going through the attorney? I don't think we have to go through the attorney for everything. Just be proactive and take a step and go do it. I mean, anybody could call and ask for it. So I have
Well,
another.
if you want me to make a priority of it, I can, but I've only been back in the office a few days, as you know.
Well, it's kind of your priority since we're going to move forward on the bond issue, and we really need to know that, because if there's no record of it, it doesn't exist. I mean, you can say there's deed restrictions, but if we don't have any copy or proof of it, it doesn't exist. And to Mr. Willis, the comment about other types of things we could do to prevent this issue. I know it came up before at a meeting, and we said that those things are very expensive and costly, and probably as costly as, but we don't know a number. I agree. But even though it's quote unquote old technology, people are still doing it. Dundee just did theirs a few years ago, or not even a few years ago, less than 3 or 4 years ago. So it's an option, and we've looked into it, and that's what our experts, as Stockley said, are recommending for that. But Mr. Willis, could you also, because there's going to be some pushback on this, obviously, respond and let the people know what you've been dealing with most recently with overflow and bypassing, and what the implications are of not doing anything to the township and the residents if we don't do something.
Yeah, the issue with the wastewater being old technology is just about everything at the wastewater plant. The processes, aeration, primary treatment, all that is all old technology, and every plant just about uses the same kind of old technology. I have not ever heard of another issue to address the wet weather flow other than going after where the flow comes from, and the few communities that have tackled that have spent a lot more money and have done years and years and years of addressing that. And we currently don't have time on our hands or the money to address that. The cheapest and fastest way is to address it with the retention basin. So that's what we're trying to do. As far as deed restrictions, I've never heard anything about the deed restrictions before. The property was changed, the zoning was changed in '89 from residential to general industrial. And 10 years after that, we built the grid chamber on it. So I don't know how that gets addressed one way or the other. And it's going to have to be a legal determination, even if there is a deed restrictions, whether we have to honor it or not. I don't know the ramifications of that either. Last week we had 2 inches of rain in 2 days, and our flow went to 1.8 million gallons. And once again, we had a high peak, and it pegged for a short time, and that washed solids out of our aeration tank and put its over limit on just about every parameter of our permit. The next day it slowed down, and we got a handle on it, but it was like 2 or 3 days before we got back in compliance with the DEQ. So if we would have had a retention basin at the time, it would have taken care of it pretty easily, because the peak got us, and then it came down fairly quick. So, and it happened in the middle of the night too. That didn't help too. So, any other questions?
Ms. Otto?
And were we contacted by the DEQ?
No, I contacted them afterwards.
Okay.
I didn't have to contact them, but I'll have to write a report at the end of the month, because it'll be on our report as the 7-day average will be over. Okay. And we won't have 7-day averages till the end of the month. And she did tell me that, if we decide that we're not going to pursue the retention basin at this time, it'll go back to the DEQ, and they'll determine course of action and enforcement and what they'll require us to do. And I don't think that's something we really want to do, but
no,
it's up to the board with that.
So I just wanted just to clarify that the building, that one building you said was already built on the area that was considered deed restriction. It was changed from it changed the zoning from residential.
Yeah, in 89, they changed the zoning from residential to general industrial. And 10 years later, we built the Grit building on that property.
So that's the property that's in question that had the deed restriction.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, for the township's information, we do have property to the north of the plant. That's real close to the homeowners, that there are no deed restrictions on there. It would probably cost more money to build it there like it would if we did it south of the plant, but it wouldn't mess up a future expansion the south of the plant. We could have it to the north. So,
but it would be closer to the residents though, right?
Yes, it would be. Standing on it, you'd look right down into their house. I don't think they would like that either, but that's property that we've always had.
Okay.
I have a few things that I'd like to point out. If we publish on the 31st of May, which is this coming Sunday, the 45 days are up on July 15th. And Ms. Carlisle just let me know that. And then she says we can put an intent to bond in the flyer with the tax bills and then do a postcard later when we actually vote on the bonds. So it seems to me we're voting on the bonds though, at this point. But we do have a newsletter coming up relatively soon that we could put information out there, and we would anyway, for all of our residents. So that's a possibility. The other thing I would like to say is I've looked into the inflow and infiltration issue substantially. It is very expensive. But one thing that can be done, if we want to do something else to help, would be to establish a point of sale inspection program. It does exist for septic systems out here in the rural area. It could exist. It would mean televising the line so that if there are any cracks and water's coming in, if there are any roots, that can be done and that can be fixed at the time of sale. It would be a long-term commitment unless we just made everybody do it, just to get out of building the equalization basin, in which case we're probably not going to get out of it anyway. So we have an opportunity here to be told we have to do this and we have no choice by the courts, or there are great bond rates right now, and it's a good time to do it to save our community some money that they're going to end up having to spend one way or the other anyway in the future. So I got Miss Bellinger with her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to kind of ask or reiterate, if we do move forward today with proceed with the advertisement for the general obligation bond, it does not commit us to absolutely, for certain, go with that particular bond at this time. Yes. Is that correct? It's not like we're absolutely committed. It means we intend to, and we're moving forward with them, with our obligation to the community with regards to infrastructure, maintenance and so forth. Correct? I mean, in other words, we're not guaranteed that we absolutely have to.
We can't switch types of bonds.
Okay, so we have to, if this votes down on the general, then we may make a motion to accept the revenue bond.
Right.
And then go from there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Ms. Selnok.
So about the deed restriction, have we asked Ms. Mesner if she has one that she could just give us? And Ms. Mesner has brought it up. That might be a quick way to get it. I hope I said her name correctly.
Right.
Yes, you are correct. We can certainly put it in the newsletter. We did send, I believe, I know Emily has sent information to you, Ms. Chalkley, that the taxes are going out June 17th.
Right.
Don't wait. they have to go out June 17th to get it to the mailbox on July 1st. That is a hard deadline.
Yep. Okay. Well, do we have any more discussion on this item? Mr. Ains, is there any last things you need to share with us before we actually vote on what to do here?
Just to point out, usually when a state or a federal agency comes in and they make you do something, they look for everything in your plant that they think would be good to do or nice to do. And so usually it inflates your costs because they're taking a point of looking at your whole operation and telling you what to bring up to par, as opposed to if you are voluntarily doing it. So I think if you end up allowing the state to come in and tell you officially that you're ordered to do something, it'll cost you a lot more money in the long term.
Okay. All right. So did we actually have a motion on this item yet?
Yes. Bellinger made it. I don't know who seconded it.
Probably me. Oh, yes, I did. Okay. So this motion is to advertise the general obligation bond again. And we can do that on May 31st. The sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Why are we even why are we even reposting?
Why are we even reposting? To give the community, if they desire to mount a referendum, they can. At this point, we already posted before. The referendum time is up. It was an argument.
Okay. Because again, I find it disingenuous to repost it during the stay-at-home order, because I think that was what our issue was, is after we posted it, the governor sent us home for basically 3 months.
Okay.
We are posting it again, or she has lifted that order. So, I'm just curious, but okay. Comment.
Ms. Manley?
I mean, I agree where Lenore's coming from, but this could go on forever. I mean, Washtenaw County is going to be probably one of the last ones released. So, I mean, how long do we want to keep postponing things for? I mean, if people want to get things done, they can find a way to get things done. So, I don't know. Like, the world can't stop for this any longer.
Amen.
I would like to say something.
Go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
It sounds like a scare tactic that the manager is using on us to kind of put the piles around. I don't think anybody's going to make us do anything that we shouldn't be doing anyway. So I don't like that kind of stuff when I hear, well, we better do it or else it's going to get worse. I don't understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
Not that I ever disagree with Mr. Dockett, but I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't think I've ever scared any of you to do something you didn't want to do, including Mr. Dockett. I'm just pointing out an observation based on my experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, had to find my mouse.
What are we voting on here?
Advertising general obligation bond again.
Okay, number 8, okay.
Number 8.
All right, Dockett.
No.
Otto.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Zelenak.
No.
Manley. Yes. Chick.
Yes.
Shockley.
Yes.
Is that 5-2?
5-2. Thank you, that passes. So we'll get that advertised right away, and by July 15th, we'll know whether or not there's a successful referendum, and which would allow time to get it on the ballot. you know, if we drag this out too much longer, then it won't be in time to get anything on the November ballot, which will drag it out even longer. So I think this will be helpful. I think it's time to protect our environment. Okay, next, budget. Mr. Ains.
Okay, let me start off saying there's a series of items here that I've given to the board. Let me just mention what those are and then go back to the first one, which is the revenue sharing. I've given you a memo on what my concerns are about revenue sharing from the state, how things have been impacted by the virus, and what might happen after that. Then I've put another memo that has to do with major budget items to discuss. These are items that I think have to be addressed by the board to give us a direction. And then there's a one-page sheet that's called suggestions for budget cuts or increasing revenues. Those are a summation of the comments that we got from the board members. I had Jennifer put them all together where if it was a similar type comment, it was one item that she made here. And then we've given you the draft agreement budget, and that has two columns, one for if you're counting 25% cut in revenue sharing and one's 50. And then there's been a lot of discussion about planning and building department, whether those should be gone to the county or to a consulting firm like McKenna. So we've given you McKenna's proposal. And then we've also shown this request from the Land Preservation Committee at the end of that. So if I go back to the revenue sharing, what I had mentioned previously was, in my experience, revenue sharing gets easily cut by state governments or the federal government when they're faced with having to balance their budgets. And the state of Michigan, the process they go through in evaluating their revenue and their expenditures is they have a consensus meeting, which is made up of Department of Treasury people, finance people in the State House and in the State Senate that get together. And in January, they got together and things looked very promising. But then things started falling apart. And we've had three meetings 2 weeks apart where the Treasury Department, the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Township Association, the Michigan counties have presented a webinar explaining the status of the budget, including the revenue sharing, in those 2 weeks separations. And what happened was from 2 weeks to the next, things changed drastically, and then the next one changed drastically, and so forth. So the state had another consensus put together, a committee meeting in May, and what they've come back with is some statements that say how much we should be getting as a township. And you can look up our township on the Treasury's website or on the MTA website. And it looks like it's about a 10% cut for each of the coming years. The problem I have with that is they have a footnote that says, note all amounts are projected. Projected amounts may change based on changes made by the legislature or changes in the economy. So to me, that doesn't guarantee you anything. And in fact, it appears that the state budget, that they're hoping they'll get money from the federal government to balance the state and to balance the local governments. But if they don't get that, which right now seems to be frozen between the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, then I don't know what kind of options they have available, but past history has shown that revenue sharing is one place the state has gone to help balance the budget. If you notice, the state's already been doing a lot of things to cut their budget. including some payless days for their employees and a lot of other things, hiring freezes. And then in addition to that, you have municipalities in Michigan and all over the country that are busy laying people off, that are busy cutting the budgets, so forth. And SimCog, if you go to them, they had an article that was put in April. It's called COVID-19 and Local Government Revenues. And that was updated May 20th. And the difference was the notes from the State Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, COVID-19 tears apart state budget. That doesn't seem to me like what normally people would be saying about the budget, unless it's the fact that they really truly are looking at huge changes where they are going to have to come up with money. So my recommendation is that you be as conservative as possible this year in what you rely on for the state budget to give you in revenue sharing. Now, as I've mentioned before, your auditors, backed by the board and backed by my actions, have been to try to build up your fund balance in the general fund, and you're at about 80% of 1 year's worth of revenue sharing and the rest of the budget. But even with that, we discussed at the last meeting being careful with how that's used. So that's the one thing. When I was looking at it further over the weekend, the impact is impacted Michigan, the entire world. But the question is, how long is that impact going to have? Is it going to be a 6-month process, a 1-year process, a 2-year process? In addition, a lot of the scientific community thinks that you may have a rebound effect and you'll go through it again. And particularly that may hit in the fall when you traditionally see a lot of the flu activity. And whether that happens or not, I think you have to be very careful about this first wave, second wave viewpoint. And then with the state budget, they're talking between the general fund and the schools of a $3 billion shortfall between now and the end of their budget year, which is September 30th. So they're having to figure out how can they cut $3 billion out. That's where I think it's back to they're counting on the federal government. Another $3 billion the second year and a $2 billion the following year. So how do they make up for $8 billion without affecting revenue sharing more? And then there's a number of other consequences that may not be quite so obvious. One of which I double-checked with my associate in my other position with the Sanitation Authority, part-time job I've had since 2001. And all 5 of the communities I serve in Wayne County were also affected by that. And that is, if you have a retirement system that's based on defined contributions, like a lot of people have, like I have, it's the employee that bears the brunt of any losses in the value of those investments. But a defined benefit plan, like you have here with your police department through MERS, the community is backing those retirements. And what MERS did during the last recession was they came back and said, now our guesstimate, our estimates of how much money would be gained in the stock market has gone way down. And the result of that, saying to the employers, you've got to come up with more money. And I would venture to say that's what's going to happen here. Is unless the economy takes a drastic rebound soon, you're going to have your pension plan be coming to you on the police pensions saying, in order to, back up that type of commitment, you're going to have to kick more money in. And I don't think most people have thought about that as a consequence either. So I'm not trying to paint a terrible picture, but I think it is a terrible picture. And so that's the first thing that I think the board will need to decide is, you know, what do you feel comfortable with in terms of what kind of revenues you can count on. If you go to the second handout I had, which is entitled Major Budget Items to Discuss, and we listed a number of these possible revenue items. The ones that we've identified already, besides revenue sharing, is the possible sale of 75 Barker, which you just approved. But beyond that, it's been mentioned selling surplus property that the township owns, but we have very small amounts of small lots that are available, and I don't see that generating a lot of money. It's been mentioned about increasing building and zoning permit fees, and that may occur, but again, you have to see what's going to happen with the building climate from this. We've talked about utilizing the fees that were for the marijuana licenses to cover part of the operating costs. And Mr. Fink did advise me that we can go back to July 1st, the beginning of this fiscal year, and charge back any of the McKenna costs that are related to that, as well as overhead for staff time has been spent on it, to charge against that source of money, which is what it's supposed to be used for, is any costs that you would be incurring. And then the SAW grant with the wastewater plant, it has to be completed by the beginning of December of this year, but it's a matter of getting that work completed, which we're well on the way of finishing, and getting those requests into the state to reimburse us. On the expenditure side, again, the whole building zoning planning is an issue. I don't know if the board wants more information on this. I can certainly produce that. I've got a stack today that I've pulled together from the files. On the salary and benefit allocations, what I had given to the board was not intended to show all the salaries. It was intended to show the amount of monies that were split for different employees. As an example, if you go down to the third person, it's the township manager. And when people throw out numbers about total compensation, they're all over the board. But this tells you what the total compensation is as it's divided between the different funds. As far as I can tell, it covers all my benefits as well as salary. Ms. Zelnick had asked me to check into that further. I did talk to Yvette, our controller, and she's going to get me a report on all employees, not just these, and confirm that these are indeed our full compensation figures. But I had thought that would be helpful if you were examining that part of it. Then the present staffing, the position of receptionist is vacant. It would be my recommendation you continue to leave that vacant indefinitely, probably through the end of the year and maybe longer. And then the capital improvement plan, the three items I've listed here are all items that could be funded through restricted funds. So you have a fund that's for Fire Station 2, that's from your cable TV rental for the tower there, and so it would be using money that's already available. And the other two are out of the fund that you have here that you've set aside for building maintenance for the rental of space on the second floor here. So those are some of the things that I've been looking at. And then the next one is your suggested list of different items. And I just wanted to see, because there's conflicting items at times, that somebody said cut something and somebody else on the board said not to cut something. But I wanted to see if there was any consensus on any of those items. I see Ms. Otto has her hand up.
Go ahead, Ms. Otto.
The question that I had to more or less do with the community center, some of the items on the community center. And this is more of a question than a comment for or against. I thought that anything that had to do with the community center was paid through a millage.
No.
It isn't?
It was proposed, it was mentioned as a concept that you should have a millage that would be directly funding the community center, but you don't have that. This is funds out of your general fund.
Could we take a methodical approach to going through this? Because on June 9th, we need to have a public hearing with a document that the public can respond to. And, you know, this is a nice list, but can we make a decision on any of these, how the board feels about it, whether we should or shouldn't do some of this? And then Yvette can put together the updated budget. The suggestion is really to get a bare bones budget here that we can adapt in the next cycle should we get more money than we anticipated. So I really think we need to make decisions on these items. So when you're at the major budget items to discuss, you know, you've got this list and, you know, you want to know, should we prepare for a 10, a 25, or a 50% cut? Is that what you'd like us to decide tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
That's going to be the biggest part of what you can save. And the question there is, you also mentioned last meeting about taking whatever level of cut, taking half of that and continue paying it from your fund balance, and the other half would be an outright cut.
Right.
And, you know, so it's what you feel comfortable with.
Ms. Zelnok.
My thought is we should have a plan for a 10% cut, a 25% cut, and a 50% cut.
I think so too.
And we did state at the last time that 50% would come from the general fund. You're right. I think we need an agreement if that's how we want to proceed or not. That would be our first step.
So how is this going to play out? I mean, how do you work out on a budget that you get the public to react to? What are we going to have? A 10% column, a 50% column? Is that what the thought is? How do you prepare a document for that?
So from a board's decision, Madam Chair, is I want to see what it looks like if I take a 10% cut, which is not going to be huge, obviously. We probably could take it off from the general fund. I want to see what cuts we have to make if we do a 25% cut and what we will have to make as a 50% cut. And we as a board can decide what we're going in as. Maybe we say we're going to do a 25% cut. That's the budget we want to adopt. That's the budget we want to present to our people. What we have.
So that was your item then, Ms. Zelnok, right? So, I mean, now I understand it.
And then you have a 50% cut that says, you know, if it really gets here, this is what, you know, we have planned, you know, C. This is what we're going to do. And the approach could be, we do nothing. We keep the budget as is. We wait for the next board, and we take it all out of the general fund. And we see where the state ends up based on a government package from the federal government.
And we can show you the three alternatives.
That's my thought. So it's how much effort do we want to put in?
Well, if we do the three alternatives, we're 3 columns like we just got. There's no money in there. So.
Well, I need to have you tell me which of the rest of these items are something that you're open to doing. Miss Otto has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Miss Otto.
Oh, I'm going to make some additional recommendations after I looked at this.
Okay.
There is a police contribution in there for Independence Day.
Yeah.
That we pay the police for $2,500. Since it isn't in there for this year, that is the savings right there. because of the fireworks and the parade. They don't have to participate. We wouldn't pay them for their time, so that would be taken out immediately. ZBA is another thing. We had $6,000 allocated for the ZBA, and we have to do 4 meetings a year. That's our minimum, but we normally do anywhere between 4 to 5. And I thought, let's just put 5 meetings, and then Mary would have to work in where these meetings would be. And that would cut about $3,500 from the budget right there.
That's a great idea.
The training, I think that anything to do with board training, I think if the treasurer and the clerk area want to have their training reduced, that's up to them. But I think all board members and supervisor, their training needs to be removed, because we can get it online now. And mostly all our training is free, the way they're doing it today. I know this is based on a new board coming up, but we're just talking 1 year. And anything that they need, they could get it right from the MTA and do it remotely. Do virtual conferences.
Okay. There is some cost to online classes.
You can also take them off on your taxes too, because that's what I've done in the past, is I paid for my own.
Yeah. Okay. Other suggestions? Ms. Bellinger.
May I expand just on that? Sorry, Tom. Can we just make it that all board members pay for their own training?
That would be fine.
And then, if the deputy treasurer, deputy clerk, or office, we could evaluate it based on the personnel, but just make it all board members pay for their own training going into this.
Yeah, the only reason why I didn't want to say treasurer or clerk, because I know that there are certain things that come up.
Correct.
That require training. So I didn't want to impede on that.
Well, from my perspective, I'll pay for it. I don't really expect my deputy to pay for it. Maybe I'll pay for hers too, but I'm, again, recommending that all board training be paid by board members.
That's fine.
As you said, Mr. Otto, and launching off of yours, and I'm fine with me as the treasurer paying for any training.
So, that's $37.50 right there that you would be saving.
For a year, though, maybe. Okay, Ms. Bellinger.
I think we should endeavor to try not to dip into the fund balance. That way we could perhaps permit the next board 1 year of a little bit of a cushion as they feel their way into the new term and get things rolling. I had a lot of little things I picked out. One of it was reduce all the miscellaneous line amounts, maybe from 500 to 300. So they'll reduce. There's a little something in there, but a little less. That saves us a few grand. One of my suggestions was to reduce the community center programming, I believe from 12,000 to 8,000. And to find if we could reduce the amount of hours of the assistant to the minimum. And I understood that the county reimburses for 6 hours per week through the senior nutrition program. Because it is, community center, it is pretty costly. And it's a great, I love the community center and I don't want to see that get crippled, but things are going to have to be adjusted. At this point anyway, until things go back to normal with regards to budgeting from the state and federal and whatever may happen with that. I had to remove the $2,000 from the donation for the county cleanup day, since that was actually not required for us to even have the cleanup day. That was something we were just contributing to the county. But I believe our taxpayers do contribute to the county sufficiently. We should hold on to that $2,000, maybe apply it towards our roads or infrastructure.
Would we
Those-
still have the county cleanup day? Could we still have the county cleanup day?
I believe so, because it was not contingent upon us having a donation before. In previous years, I've asked that very question. And the 2,000 was simply contribution. It was not a requirement in order to have the cleanup day. I also like the idea of perhaps instead of, I don't know that we should kick the building department off to the county at this point, but I do think we obviously need to raise the fees to cover the costs. It was always supposed to be a revenue neutral item. We're supposed to make a lot of money, and obviously we're not supposed to lose money on it. So the building department clearly needs to be fees adjusted. I fear if we do give it off to the county, which we could choose to do so, we may not be able to bring that back if we desire to in the future. And I think Parks and Rec should take a considerable cut, or perhaps no additional funding at all at this point, and perhaps work on voluntary donations and contributions. Those are a few things I had thoughts about, but I am really would like to protect the fund balance to the best of our ability, because it's if things were, heaven forbid, things get worse, but it could.
Mm-hmm. Okay, back. Let's see, Miss Otto again.
I just had a question for Tawn. Would she consider for the county cleanup day making that a donation as well?
Well, yeah, I mean,
As
absolutely,
people would come-
absolutely. I mean,
As
there's
people
no.
would come, they would have to just donate money.
Oh, absolutely. I am all for donations or
There's a
people
lot of the
contributing.
refuge-
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because a lot of the refuge that they're getting rid of, they couldn't get rid of any other way.
Yeah, I totally support. I totally support people contributing voluntarily for Parks and Rec, for the cleanup, for the community center, for any of these things. I mean, ultimately, government's job is really, really very trim. We're supposed to collect the taxes and pay it out. We're supposed to run elections. We're supposed to have a township hall and a place for people to do business, pay bills and so forth. Literally, and most importantly, what our duties are supposed to be, first and foremost, is the oath of office to protect the rights of the governed. That's our duties. Everything extra is pretty much what the community should be doing, and it ultimately should revert back to the community doing for the community, not government doing for the community.
Ms. Beck?
I'd like to have something to say here.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dockett. What have you got?
I would like to say that I don't think we should spend our maintenance fee money for any other items other than what we are saving it for, maintenance. And all of us need to thank Lenore for our fund balance of 81%. We all helped, but if it wouldn't have been for Lenore, we wouldn't have 81% on the fund balance. I don't think we should pay out half of it. I mean, a very little percentage at the time. We may need that fund balance for 2-3 years. So let's not get in a big hurry to spend it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Chick.
Question on the suggested cuts. Continue with annual Zoom subscriptions to cut meeting attendance and mileage reimbursement costs. So this would just be cutting mileage costs because they still get paid for their time, correct?
This would only be mileage for the planner, not for the attorney.
Okay, and so how would that even be handled? So we would have a meeting in person, but the planner would be on Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is the planner could be brought in, or the attorney could be brought in, just like tonight you had Mariah in for part of the meeting.
Okay.
So for instance, with
that.
I'm sorry?
How would the public see that?
They they would most likely be hearing it, but I don't know if you could show that in a way that the cameras would pick it up or not.
Okay, so I
I'd
guess
have to look into that.
another question I have as well. Does this Zoom application be used for our meetings as opposed to having, you know, can they be live streamed?
I believe they can be.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up for me, so I'm not sure what all you were saying. I apologize.
She wants to know if we can use Zoom and live stream our Zoom so that we don't have, you know, to make that easier. I guess we would need a videographer then.
Right, as opposed to having a videographer, we just use Zoom instead. I mean, the cost of the Zoom is much less costly for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe it could be done. We'll can look into that.
Okay.
Okay, and then so don't we reassess our costs for the phones and the internet annually, or do we not?
Well, I think we do. Again, this was on the list that the board members put down.
Right.
Okay. All right, and then on the other under expenditures for the capital improvement plan, the concrete improvements, the asphalt repairs, to the painting and the gutters. Do we have to use that 20,000 to do that, or can that be not used at all?
Yeah, on the concrete work, we might not use the full amount, but the chief said there's it's gotten to the point where there's dangerous sections of the concrete, and so we do need to put that in. And the asphalt, we've taken the ceiling 3 years instead of 2 years, so it's time we get that done as well. But again, both of those would be out of the money that you have from the rent for the lease space upstairs here. That would you designate that for maintenance. That's what it would be. You said it'd be maintenance on this building, and so that would be the chief's highest priority.
Okay, I just wondered if the painting and the gutters could wait. It's kind of aesthetic.
That one, again, those monies are coming from the cable TV tower, and we're designated for maintenance of that building. She feels like you got the roof done last year, you need to go ahead and do the gutter and the painting work this year.
Okay, and also I noticed oh wait a minute, one more. For Lenore, People's Express, are they needing that extra 10,000 next year?
Yeah, just declare that I am on the People's Express board. So are they needing the extra 10? So what happens, you give us, when there's a contract, we can actually go make that contract more money. If you pay individually, it doesn't work that way. So that's just how the grant works that we actually work through, is that we can take that 10,000 and make it 20,000. We can provide that many more rides. And we can reduce the cost because now we're under the grant structure.
Okay.
That's how that works. So basically, if you go inside, it's $1 to $2 dollars within town, and then if you go outside to anywhere in Ann Arbor, it's $7 a trip. And again, that's People's Express and a little conflict of interest here, but that's how that works. And otherwise, we'd have to charge you the full cost, which could be the gas mileage, basically, and all that. So,
okay.
That's how that works.
Ms. Bellinger.
We could set up a way to collect donations for People's Express from the public willingly instead of the general fund, and get donations, even if it exceeds $10,000, that could be on hold for the next year for People's Express to then multiply their money. I would be all in favor of doing something of that nature.
kind of think it's going to be really hard for people to donate money for the next year with people out of work and losing jobs and losing businesses, and things are a little tight. You know, a lot of people had buffers. Many people do not have buffers. So
maybe we could do a sponsor ride.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, if I may, is one thing we could look at is it runs from January to December. Maybe we could do a half year, 5,000, and then reevaluate. I could talk to the director, people discuss, or maybe we could cut it from 10 to 5 and then reevaluate it afterwards.
Yeah. And do we know how much money does Parks and Rec have? Oh, I didn't look. Parks and Rec have anything in their bank account right now?
I don't know.
Well, you know, someone actually, right, picks up the, at the dog park. Isn't that part of their budget?
What?
Right?
Hey,
Someone has to pick up the manure at the dog park.
right, we have the waste that we need to take care of every
Oh, I
week.
was just wondering if they have anything left in there, any money left over.
The exact amount is not known, but I believe it's somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000 at this point.
I mean, I don't think they spent all their budget, if that's what you're at.
No, right.
Yeah, I think that's what she's asking.
Right, but it doesn't roll over from year to year. It
No,
starts over.
Right, it's not a rollover.
Right. I mean, none of this, if something's left, unless we make a decision to roll it over, it's gone. Start over
I mean,
again.
we're going to have to make some tough decisions. Do we take care of infrastructure, or do we play Santa Claus? And the most important thing is infrastructure. That's what people expect us to be spending their money on. I like People's Express, but people need to fund that, not the township. People expect their tax money to go towards infrastructure and roads and the business of the township. Extra stuff, people need to do voluntarily. That's the bottom line.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, I think it would be helpful, actually, to say, how much are we trying to achieve?
Right.
Yeah. How
So-
much are we trying to, what do you mean, reduce from our current bare bones budget?
Right, well, no, from our current budget, right, and our fund balance, what is it that we're trying to achieve? You know, at a 25% cost, is it like 160,000? Double that for a 50% cost, right?
Right. Well, that was my confusion with the revenue sharing. The state, what I read from STEMCOG is it's like a 12.9% reduction in this fiscal year.
Correct.
And then 47, I think, for the next fiscal year for us, because of the fiscal year we're on. So, you know, that's where we need to make a decision on how we're going to plan to make the cuts. And if we say, you know, 25%, we're looking at a 25% cut in our general fund budget. Where do we make those cuts? And some things we don't want to cut. Some things we do. Maybe we want to increase some things. So that's the challenge we're going to have. And we're talking about all of this huge list of things.
Well, and Madam Chair, right, the board just sold a building.
Yes.
For close to 90,000.
That might make up for the entire loss.
Pretty much.
It does.
If you go to the 25%.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
It does.
That needs to be, and, you know, looking at it is, yep, I think right now, we don't know how the office is going to work. We don't know how many people.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, to me, not having a front desk person, which will impact the office staff, it will certainly impact the treasurer department, it will impact Ms. Carlisle, and it will impact Ms. Cody. You have to be aware of that, because and the deputy clerk, Ms. Wilson, helps out too. So that will be an impact.
Yeah.
So we have to decide, you know, I think we could see how it goes, but I look for Mr. Haynes to maybe allocate, you know, who's going to answer the phones, who's going to run the front desk during that point in time. But that's another, what, $26,000 potentially? Now we have 90, 26, so we're at what, 100? So we're kind of there for maybe this year if we want to do half and half. And then I do think we make some cuts, you know, as well as the code enforcement. How many hours does he really work? You know, is it $5 here, but you know, things like that. So that's what I'm looking at. We just sold a building, so that may alleviate some of our concerns as well, or help us out, obviously. I think right now, because we don't know how the virus is going to happen, is not hiring the front desk, but I think people need to understand it will impact the current office staff. And I think we should donate to the cleanup day. I think that's one service that everybody seems to really enjoy, and service the community at a small cost. The community center, I think, Mr. Ains, if you talk to Ms. Averell about, with the virus, what programs can we bring back? Which programs would she be comfortable, and when do we think we could bring those back? Because if you look at the revenue and you look at the cost on the community programs, you're not talking a lot of money, because you have revenue on one side and on the other, you're maybe talking $2,000-$3,000. Not that it doesn't matter, but which programs? And then again, with the additional help with the virus, are we still using that help? And maybe we bring it back when we get back to more of a normal situation with the community center. People's Express, I'm on the board. I think, maybe we start out with half cut or a full cut. Obviously, that's the board's decision. But I think we need to tally up this. And I think personally, I don't know if we want to eliminate the township manager position, but maybe we reduce the hours. I mean, what key items are being worked on?
Okay.
That we, take a 10% cut from a management level. I personally don't want to do it from a personnel level. I think they're going to be burdened a little more with this virus because we're not hiring a front desk person.
Ms. Manley?
Yeah, I'll be quick and then I'll send Steve the rest of mine, so we're not here all night. I do agree with not hiring the front desk person. And I'd kind of like an idea if Steve could come up with, we were closed for this time, so we didn't have that front desk person. We didn't do things at the community center. We didn't use the planner. I mean, how much money did we kind of save in those positions that we didn't use that we might be able to push forward also? And I agree with, we need to keep the county cleanup day if we can, just because during this time, we know that people have been cleaning out things. I'd rather have the township spend $2,000 than have all these things on the side of our roads that people are going to have to pick up. They're going to need a place to take all these things.
Otherwise, they're going to throw it on the side of the road.
Exactly. Because that's where it's going to end up. It's where it ends up now.
Right.
So maybe we can curb some of that. And I guess as far as the clerk's office, we'll cut as much as we can. We'll make the commitment for that. But we have no idea what we're going into this election year. We do have the election specialist. Hopefully we'll be able to help step up and cover that front desk person also. So I think it's going to be a lot of teamwork. And I agree with Lenore. I don't think we should ask for any kind of voluntary pay cuts because they're going to be making up for time loss and for people not being there. Okay. And anything else I'll send to Steve.
Okay, Ms. Otto?
Yeah, I wanted to capitalize. I don't believe in having our employees have any pay cuts, but I do believe that we should have a hiring freeze during a certain period of time, and that there should be no increases, no wage increases during a certain period of time.
Okay. All right, let's see. Does Mr. Dockett have anything? Is he still around?
I agree, no increases. I agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm finding the list rather overwhelming, and perhaps we can put together something that's, so everyone can go ahead and say yes, no, yes or no on a lot of these things, so that we're not going through these. I could go through individually and show you all the ones that I have arrows by for reductions, but I think we need to come up with a comprehensive plan, and we need to know where the board is on a lot of these items. And some of them are more complicated than others. the senior center, for instance, is one of the ones we spend general fund dollars out of, but it seems like there are a lot of cost savings there. And yes, we probably did save a lot because there hasn't been any trips going on. So I think we really should put together a comprehensive list, send it out to the board, and give us 2 or 3 days to make your checklists, and then get that put into a budget and or a comprehensive plan that we can look at our next meeting. Otherwise, I'll sit here and go through all of these things myself and say what I think about them, but I don't know how helpful that is at this point. Ms. Zelnok?
So again, first of all, I do believe we need to know, are we taking any money out of the general fund? Are we taking half of the general fund, or do we want to do it all with cost? So that needs to be decided to me first.
Okay.
And again, we just potentially added, 90,000. I'm going to take out lawyer fees and stuff like that to our revenue source. And we need to know, and Mr. Ains needs to talk to our community center director to see what programs come back, what programs won't be coming back because of this virus. How much is the full-time person working? And we just need, the equation, A plus B equals C, but we don't have A plus B equals C. It's like, what is our goal to reach here? And then if I still have the floor, I would like to talk a minute on the LPC, Land Preservation Committee. So we did put a budget together. What we would like to do is actually put a separate piece of paper in the tax one. It could be colored for $500. You can probably cover it by donations this first time, or it could be $250. The other thing is still have the consultant he has about $1,700 on his contract. And the other is we're looking that the board will commit to, if a property comes or several properties come, are we committing to add a donation, or not a donation, bad word, a contribution to that?
Doctor will be signing off at 10 o'clock.
Okay, so that's what we're looking for. If you look at it, get down to the township land preservation contribution, are we committed that if a parcel comes up through the county or the Greenbelt, would we be willing to contribute towards that? And then we would like to, again, during this time, farmers are important. And I think it would be helpful just to express what land preservation can do as far as helping community farmers and having community farms so you can go get food. So that's what we're looking for. And you can see that, we started out with when the life was rosy, and then when life became not so rosy.
Okay.
So I would like the board to consider that.
Well, I considered it last time, and I mean, and I think it's valuable to do for the community. So I'll continue to say it's valuable if a property comes up. Ms. Otto?
Oh, a couple of things I wanted to address, because we did do it this last time, but there is still an issue as to who do we pay for this $2,000. We never got according to Paul Burns, the contribution, we couldn't send the money to the Ann Arbor Greenbelt program. And it was never determined who do we send it to. So while that motion was out there and it was never paid. As far as I know, it's still never paid.
It's been paid, and it's been paid to the city of Ann Arbor.
It was paid to the city of Ann Arbor, and it was paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
right. So that's what we need to know, is if we draft a program like this, do we make it out to the Greenbelt program? Do we make it out to the city of Ann Arbor? Who is it made out to?
Okay.
The only other thing that I'd like to understand too is that I do not support, I would only support farms. The Ann Arbor Greenbelt program only does support farms. I would not support a private owner wanting to get an easement on his property just because he doesn't want to sell to a developer, which they have that choice anyways. And the other part of this, I did look at a lot of this as far as the community education and everything. A lot of this can be put into our current tax mailings, our current newsletters that we send out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these communications that we have put in our budgets, we can start combining these communications. So we're saving money.
And that was the proposal.
We don't have to have separate communications for it.
Correct. And the proposed budget is that we would put a separate page in the 2 tax bills. So I would expect that this tax bill, a lot will be talked about the virus and, you know, the sewer basing. So we were just saying we would just do an extra page. And that's our proposal. We can do it in black and white and it'd be like $250, or in color is like $570.
Okay. Ms. Bellinger?
Yeah, I've been very disappointed with this whole Land Preservation Committee and the whole movement. We were promised back in December of 2016 that this would not using taxpayer money. And it's been suggested by myself and others that land preservation activists could perhaps form a club or organization and go forth into the public and attract volunteers and secure willing voluntary financial contributions from the public, as opposed to attempting to open people's wallets forcibly, forcing them to pay, otherwise lose their property. I mean, how ironic. Or to dip their hands into the general fund. I sense that my instinct is to curtail this type of spending and these types of growths of government and expansions of government. And we should focus on faithfully and responsibly allocating monies towards projects and infrastructure that the taxpayers do expect their money to be carefully allocated to, such as roads, infrastructure, township buildings, sidewalks, schools. The other organizations and other activities are valid and they're good, but they should be done voluntarily from clubs and committees and organizations, public ones. People in the public voluntarily being a part of and voluntarily contributing. We have a real challenge up ahead here with this, what looks like a potentially foreboding future. And this $90,000 windfall we may have by the sale of 75 Barker should go to strengthen the very good, very strong fund balance that we do have. Strengthen it even more for potential really horrible horizon. If we tighten things up and we find in a year or two, or the next board finds in a year or two, a surplus of funds and things get better, perhaps a lot more of the roads could be taken care of. Every single person, including People's Express, all of them benefit from roads. And people already expect their money to be spent on roads. So instead of the shell game of, like many municipalities do, putting a millage out for roads while taking fund balance and putting it towards extras, take what people expect the money to already be used for, roads, and put it there. Let external organizations do the extras. People in the community, with the farmland preservation, they could do that. People's Express should be funded by people in the community voluntarily. Otherwise, you should put a millage out for every little extra thing, not roads, but all the extra things. The money we collect, the money we get from state revenue, the money we get from the under $1 mil that we charge, whatever that we get should be allocated towards running the government as needed, taxes, assessment, and elections, infrastructure, and roads. Obviously, we got a police millage, we got a fire millage. Those are their own entities. All the extras are extras, and all those extras are what should be considered as potential millages brought to the people. In other words, the money we get should not be going towards People's Express, land preservation, or even Parks and Rec for that matter. It should be going towards the infrastructure that people expect their tax money to go for. The extras should be all extras.
Okay.
So ultimately, I think we need to be very conservative, certainly at this point. And I agree with Doc. You've done a very good job, Lenore, with the fund balance. We all have. I think you've done a very good job with the investments too. I do want to give you that kudos. I think it's well deserved. But right now, I think it's very important that we trim things back and be extra highly critically responsible and careful for something that could be disastrous. And I think we should be really, really tighten it up in case things really, the bottom really falls out, because it could.
Ms. Chick?
Unmute.
Got her.
I don't think that some of these things that we're talking about are frivolous. I appreciate what Ms. Bellinger is saying. I totally understand where she's coming from on it. But every other community, Livingston has the Let's Bus, Chelsea has the Wave, and they all are community-driven opportunities for the people to take advantage of. Parks and Recs are paid by the communities. Land preservation in some is paid by the communities. So this isn't something extraordinary that we do or we're considering donate to these programs. It's part of taking care of your community and the people. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, we're it's already 10 o'clock here, so we need to wrap this up. I'd like to make a reasonable list. I know Mrs. Zelnick wants to know, do we plan on cutting anything, 25%, 10%, whatever?
Well, the other thing, Madam Chair, is
yes,
we haven't talked about our professional staff. We haven't talked about assessing. We haven't talked about planning, zoning. What's the other one? Help me out. Missing one.
Zoning.
Planning, zoning, assessing. Is that it?
Legal.
Legal. Yeah, we have not talked about those. So those are a huge portion of our budget too.
Right.
How do we curtail some of those fees and the usage of that? And should we go back, I would like to do an RFP for planners.
I agree.
I would like to do one to either in-house as well, or, a planning firm. I would like to maybe consider going back to assessing the way we used to, where Miss Bird helped out and we only had one assessor, because that expense has basically almost doubled, right? We were at like 50,000.
We were at 66 and we popped up 50.
At 99 now.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look at those costs as well. So we're taking it on our initial staff, our personnel that are employed by us, but I think we need to extend that. How do we make sure, how many hours do we spend monthly with the attorney? How many hours? I think we should cap the number of hours with the planner and see what issues that may cause us. We may say, hey, I've got to, do the site plan. It's going to, create, but I think that needs to be monitored more than it currently is. And I think we should do an RFP for planning in-house as well as an RFP to go outside.
Okay.
And I do agree with Ms. Bellinger. I think at this point in time, we should keep the building department in-house, and we'll have to raise the fees, but how much do we raise them? Again, we don't have that number, but I do think we are missing a crucial component of our paid professionals services that we need to look at as well. Because if we're asking the internals, we need to ask the externals to take cuts too.
Yeah. And if we ask them, any of them, if they'd be willing to take a cut or do some trimming on their own.
Yes, I think that needs to be out to them.
One of the other areas too that we didn't talk about is the janitorial staff.
Yeah.
We may have to go out for bid on that.
Yep. Okay. I think we need to put our heads together and come back with another a plan for the board to go thumbs up, thumbs down, I guess, on a lot of it. Maybe the committee that worked on this, there was Steve, me, Yvette, and Lenore. sat down together, but it seems like Kathy would have, Lenore's doesn't want to do that again.
I'm looking at our township manager. After this meeting, he should come back with, a proposal. I mean,
okay. Well, there's been a lot suggested, and I would like to work through it with him, because the budget is the supervisor's and the manager's job.
That's fine.
So
a lot of things have been on there forever. I mean, we've said we wanted to sell the property. We've talked about the building department. I mean, a lot of it's just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing that should have already been done.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I agree.
So now it'll make us get it done, right?
Yep, it will.
But I agree with you, Miss Manley.
Okay. Well, I don't know that Mr. Ains, did you get much help here with your part of this whole budget? We'll put our heads together and come up with something, Mr. Ains.
Yeah, I think it helped a lot, because before now we could have been going a lot of different directions. Now I have some idea which directions you want me to look into.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about this, you and I and Yvette, and come back with another budget.
Well, for all these items that we're talking about cutting, put dollar amounts to them so we can see what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just kind of guessing.
Yep, you're right. Okay. So, is that enough budget? All right. Announcements. 4th of July parade and stuff. Oh, Miss Otto, do you want to mention that since you...
Yeah, I will. I can mention both of them in both committees.
Okay.
So basically it started with the 4th of July Fireworks Committee. They made the determination that they could not put on a show that they thought was for the benefit of the community without concern with social distancing. And based on that, when I went back to the parade committee and we discussed our situation, we felt the same way. And based on both, we made the decision that that we would not do the parade or the fireworks this year. It was a very difficult decision that was made. We did not make it lightly. There was a lot of variables that were impacting the fireworks, and there was a lot of variables that were impacting the parade. And with the extension of the stay-at-home order going out into mid-June, we didn't know it at the time, but our committee decided if it did go out to mid-June, it would be very hard for us to get people involved in the parade and make sure that there was social distancing in the parade. So with that, the parade committee is thinking of doing something. It will be virtual. We have not finalized anything, and we have not brought it to the Kiwanis yet, but I think that people would enjoy it.
Okay, thank you. County Cleanup Day is July 27th, potentially.
Pete Wagner has his hand up.
Pete Wagner. Oh, Bill Wagner. Sorry. Go ahead.
I said.
I got you. Go ahead, Mr. Wagner.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I just have a few announcements to make real quick while we're doing announcements. We're looking at opening the police lobby next Monday. We've had we've had one of the two ladies in answering phones for a couple of weeks now, and we're comfortable with the glass in place now that we can open up the lobby. I don't expect a lot of traffic. The only thing we won't be doing at this point will be breathalyzers, but we will be able to do fingerprints for people that need them and people that need to pick up records or pick up cars that have been impounded. So that's probably next Monday we're looking at. Our firefighter that was positive is recovered and back to work, so that's good news. We're still doing fine for PPE, personal protective equipment for the police officers and firefighters, and we've actually participated in a regional grant to purchase additional PPE. Our call volume is picking up, still a little below normal, but just about back to where we are normally at. And then I think I would correct Mr. Ains. He spoke on police department pensions and defined benefit pensions. And while that is true with a lot of police department pensions, and ours is a defined benefit, the difference is our police officers actually make up the difference in the change. In our contract, we are locked at a 10% contribution from the township side. That doesn't change. It's the police officers that make up the difference when there is a change in the market, like there may potentially be. In other pensions, that is true. And I think that's all of the announcements I have, unless anybody has anything for me.
I guess that's a new one. I hadn't followed closely enough on your contract, Chief, but I apologize.
So quick question, if calls are down, is overtime down?
Yeah, we haven't had, because we didn't allow any officers to take time off for about a 6-week period. We are now allowing that. And so there has been very little overtime. There's been a little bit of part-time work because we filled a couple holes here and there where we were down to one officer with a part-time officer. Mm-hmm. And we reduced our public education or our crime prevention time a little bit, and that will be going back to normal next week or two. So so overtime's been down.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for everything.
Okay. We should move to second call to the public here.
We have announcements yet, correct?
Oh, announcements, yes. Do you still have one? Go ahead.
Yes. Parks and Rec, this Saturday, the 30th, weather permitting, 11 a.m. We are supposed to, everybody can come meet us at the community garden that would like to come out and do a community garden cleanup. After that, we will head over to the Bark Park. If the weather doesn't permit, then this is supposed to occur on the 6th of June at 11 a.m. Okay. So it's this Saturday, the 30th, Parks and Rec converging on the community garden to get it ready for this season. And if that doesn't work out, then June 6th.
Okay, what time again? On
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right. Second call to the public now. Do we have anyone who would like to speak at this time? Please raise your hand. See, there we go. I knew he had to say something. Go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
David Gordon, Helen Road. Was that your welcome response, Ms. Shockley?
State your name, your address, and 3 minutes, please.
I thought you would be pleased that somebody at least is staying up to watch this and has something to add.
There's quite a few, actually.
I have been elected to be chair of the Land Preservation Committee, and I'm very honored by that distinction that was given to me by the other members. 2 months ago, we were very keen on putting a millage in front of the voters to ask them if they'd be willing to support farming and the preservation of natural areas and open space in our community. But because of COVID-19, we pretty much all agreed that it would be bad timing to do that. We don't really believe it's the right time to be asking for money at this point, or forcing customers to pay more for the services that they're providing, like this board is going to do with the current sewer customers. Local farming is infrastructure. I'm getting a lot of my food on a weekly basis from a local farm here, just into Webster Township. I think a lot of other people are as well. Land preservation is also economic development. It is an investment in the future. And without it, I think we're all going to be in trouble, no matter how many septic fields or wastewater treatment plants you put up. If you don't have any food, you're in trouble. So I hope the board finds it to be a worthy investment when you discuss your budget again. I sat here listening to you discuss the budget for an hour. It was informative. I think it could have been much more productive had you been provided a list, a simple list with numbers attached in terms of if we cut the manager, we save X number of dollars. If we cut planning, we save X number of dollars. Because listening to Mr. Ains talk about what he called the word a terrible picture, I think is what he called the future of the state budget and therefore our budget. It's like we're a patient that just lost his leg in an accident and gets transported to a hospital, and it seems like everybody's talking about what kind of Band-Aid to put on it. You can't make up a $350,000 shortfall by cutting all your social services and trying to make them survive simply by donations. I know that Ms. Bellinger has been promoting donations for a while, and I've watched the donations come in, and it's a tiny dribble. It's not a legitimate way to run the government, and social programs are essential because we're all in this together. I know I feel closer to my neighbors and to the local farming community than I did prior to COVID, and they're doing a great service to the community. I would hope that you continue to support them with some funding, because so far it's been a very, very small amount, and it's leveraged to a great degree. I mean, the $2,000 that got donated saved 80 acres of farming. I challenge the board to find another equally tremendous accomplishment with such a small amount of money. So I hope that the community, you asked us for ideas on the budget, but we don't have any numbers. It's great if Mr. Ains gets numbers together, that the rest of the community can see it on the township website, for instance. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. We have Ann would like to speak. Okay.
It says I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
What's your name? Address.
My comment is that I would like, my understanding is that the general obligation bonds and versus the revenue bonds, that there's a difference in who pays first. I'd like that clarified. In one case, the sewage user pays, and in another case, the property taxes comes first. So
Okay.
if you could clarify that for me, I'd appreciate it. And that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. And what's your name and address, Ann?
I'm sorry, Ann Hunter, Fair Oak Drive.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other person who would like to speak at this point? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll move on to board member comments.
Marlene, there's Jessica would like to speak.
Well, I don't see her. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, sorry, it just prompted me to unmute. And can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, this is Jessica Meissner, 8176 Barrow Drive. I had a couple of comments. One is, it sounds like several board members are still asking whether or not there are deed restrictions, and I just wanted to suggest, of course, I would be more than happy to forward the letter and the documents, the registered documents from, to the board members. If that's requested, you can just email me. If it's more convenient, you can also just request that your lawyer share those documents with you. Your lawyer was copied on those documents, so they're available. I also wanted to just thank Ms. Cockley for raising the suggestion that that there be fewer inspections at the time of property sale. That's the first time, as far as I know, that suggestion has actually been included in the meeting. I think that should go on an agenda. I would not disagree that with folks that have characterized the tactics of some as fear tactics in terms of the state of Michigan imposing requirements on Northfield Township. I've actually read the letter from the state of Michigan, and the letter simply states that action needs to be taken to try to correct the current situation with overflows. So that would qualify, you know, actually instituting, for instance, inspections at the time of property sale would qualify as action towards that issue. And for those of you who may be saying that there are no technologies recently that would be affordable, that would actually qualify as actions taken towards the root cause issue of the overflows, I would just ask that the board members please just Google net capture systems. So net capture systems are recommended by the EPA, and they are $40,000 a piece. There's no way that's going to be even $1 million to put net capture systems to try to capture some of the solids that actually block the sewer inflows from the collection system when there are wet weather events. So those are recommended for wet weather events. They're $40,000 a piece. Just Google them. They're right there. Not a secret. So that would be my other recommendation. Anyway, I appreciate Ms. Cockley actually bringing up the suggestion of the inspections. I really believe that the state of Michigan is asking that you take action towards the issue. So there are many things you can do to take action towards the issue that won't cost the taxpayers or the sewer users $5 million worth of debt. Anyway, all of those comments are simply to help, or hopefully to help. If you're still stuck on the tank and you're curious about these restrictions and you know don't want to ask for those documents from your lawyer, they do have a copy. Please feel free to email me. I'll be happy to share them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right. Board member comments. Do we have anything? I'll start with Mr. Dockett, if he's still here. No, I don't see it. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Bellinger, quickly.
I mentioned the Park and Rec event this Saturday. I want to mention I drove down Noller today between 6 and 7. It has received some spot limestone and some maintenance. The cleanup day thing, perhaps, you know, the cleanup day is, I believe, a good idea to have. I just don't believe we can afford to pay the $2,000 out of general fund. But I do think we should accept donations for it. I understand there was a $15 suggested donation for that. That would be fabulous. Please support local businesses like Polly's and other local businesses that we have in the township to the best of your ability. And I'm wishing everyone a fantastic remainder of the evening and a truly blessed week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, board.
Okay, Ms. Otto, do you have anything? Okay.
I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day weekend, honoring those who have died for our country and honoring those who have served in the many wars for our freedom, and appreciate everything that they have done for us to keep our freedom. And we want to make sure that that we honor and remember those.
Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Manley?
Good.
Good. You're good? Okay, Ms. Zelnok?
Sure. What will we be doing at the community garden? It looks pretty good already, except for some of the pots that haven't been cleaned.
We will converge there, see what else needs to be done. There may be a, I don't know, I guess we'll see when we get there exactly what's coming together. And then from there, go to the Bark Park. There may be some minor repairs, some maintenance that people discussed on different aspects of both the garden and the Bark Park. That's what I understand.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Mr. Ains, have you received the letter that Ms. Meisner talks about on the deed restrictions? Do you have that?
I think the letter she's referring to is the one that was sent by their attorney to the Planning Commission in Green Oak Township, and we did get a copy of that.
So
I did forward.
Do you have the deed restriction that Ms. Meisner is talking about?
I believe it showed that there was a deed restriction at the time, but it was referring to that back in 1989. That's where we're not sure if something had changed.
Can you send that to us?
I think we received copies of that.
Did we?
Yeah. I'll try to get another copy out to you. I'll talk to Jim if I don't locate it right away.
Okay, because it seems
but
like
I can get it to you.
Deed restrictions. So, and again, on the sewer basin, I don't argue that it needs to be done. I do think we should look at some of the items that Ms. Meisner put there. You know, we have to handle the flow. I do again think it's disingenuous that we're doing it under the stay-at-home order. You know, talk to the governor. Say stop it. You know, we need to get down with business. So I don't think we get to pick and choose. And then 70 by Barker, I certainly hope Mr. Mugner delivers. It was really a difficult decision for me, walking the property, looking at it. With the changes that are coming to town, it was tough. So I do hope he delivers, and I hope that Ms. Fink and Mr. Ains, you work and get that development agreement done ASAP, so we can close this item. And land preservation, I think there is economic value that we overlook. And I think with the pandemic, we're starting to see how important it is to visit local farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, appreciate all the suggestions everyone had over the budget. And we'll be looking forward to what the public has to say next week when we do the public hearing on the budget. We'll try to, well, Mr. Ains and I will come up with a good plan to get feedback from the board and be able to come up with a good budget. So we'll have a plan for you all. But I guess at this late hour, I would like to move to adjourn.
I'll support.
Talk soon. Motion by Chalkley, support by Otto. Do we need a roll call? And
Yes.
everybody go ahead and.
Chick is gone. Where did she go?
She had to take care of her husband.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Do we need a roll call?
Yes, we do.
Hanley, yes. Otto?
Yes.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Shockley?
Yes.
Bellinger?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great night.
Take care.
Bye. Good night.